Victoria's fingers closed around 6-year-old Zoe's throat like a vice, slamming the child's small body against the cold refrigerator door with a sickening thud. "You want to eat? You think you deserve food in my house." Her voice was pure venom as the little black girl's feet kicked helplessly in the air, her tiny hands clawing at the manicured fingertips crushing her windpipe. "Your mother is dead, and your father wishes you had died with her." Zoe's eyes bulged, tears streaming down her dark cheeks, her lips turning blue as she gasped out the only words she could manage through her closing throat. "Mommy, please, don't cry anymore. I'll be good. I promise, I'll be good." Before we continue this heartbreaking story, please subscribe to our channel and follow along until the very end. Comment below which city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. Now let's begin. Victoria held on for 3 more seconds. 3 seconds of watching the light fade from Zoe's eyes. 3 seconds of feeling the child's struggles weaken. 3 seconds of pure sadistic pleasure. Then she released her grip. Zoe crumpled to the kitchen floor like a broken doll, gasping and choking, her small hands clutching her bruised throat. She curled into a ball, trying to make herself as small as possible, trying to disappear. Victoria smoothed her Chanel blouse and checked her reflection in the stainless steel refrigerator. She adjusted a strand of blonde hair, reapplied her lipstick, and smiled at what she saw. Perfect. Always perfect. "Get up." Zoe couldn't move. Her body was shaking too hard, her lungs still burning for air. "I said get up." Victoria's heel came down on Zoe's hand. The child screamed, yanking her fingers back, cradling them against her chest. "You have 5 minutes to clean yourself up before James comes back from his errands. If he sees you like this, if anyone sees you like this, I will lock you in that closet for 3 days. No food, no water, no light. Do you understand me?" Zoe nodded frantically, still unable to speak. "Use your words, you stupid girl." Yes, ma'am." "And what are you going to tell your father when he calls tonight? That everything is fine, that I love my new mommy, that I'm happy." "Good." Victoria bent down, gripping Zoe's chin, forcing the child to look at her. "Because if you ever tell anyone what happens in this house, I will make sure you disappear. I know people, Zoe. Bad people. People who take little girls and sell them to monsters in other countries. Is that what you want?" "No, ma'am." "Then remember your place." Victoria released her chin and stood. "Now get up, clean up this mess, and pray I'm in a better mood tomorrow." She stepped over the child's trembling body and walked out of the kitchen, her heels clicking against the marble floor like a countdown to doom. Zoe lay on the cold tile staring at the ceiling, her throat burning, her hand, throbbing, her heart shattered into a million pieces. She was 6 years old. She had been living this nightmare for 8 months, and somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, her father had no idea. Marcus Thompson was reviewing contracts in his private jet, a glass of bourbon untouched beside him, his mind already racing ahead to the Dubai acquisition that would add another billion to his empire. He was tired. 2 months of negotiations, late nights, and high-stakes meetings had drained him. But the deal was done. He was finally going home. Home to Zoe. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. "Missing you so much, baby. Zoe and I are counting down the days until you're back. She's been such an angel. I think she's finally starting to accept me as her new mommy. Can't wait to show you how well we've been bonding. Love you." Marcus smiled, typing back a quick response. "Can't wait to see my girls. Tell Zoe Daddy's bringing her a surprise." He leaned back in his seat and closed his eyes, picturing the reunion. Zoe running across the lawn, her wild curly hair bouncing her gap-toothed smile brighter than the Georgia sun. He would scoop her up, spin her around, and never let her go. That image was what kept him going through every exhausting day. His daughter. His whole world. He had no idea that at that very moment his whole world was lying on a kitchen floor, choking back sobs, praying for death. In the Thompson mansion, Zoe finally found the strength to stand. Her legs were shaky, her vision blurred with tears, but she knew Victoria's threats were not empty. She had learned that lesson the hard way. She stumbled to the bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror. Red marks were already forming around her throat, angry welts that would need to be hidden. Her hand was swelling where Victoria's heel had crushed it. And her eyes. Her eyes looked like they belonged to someone much older. Someone who had seen too much. Someone who had given up hope. She turned on the faucet and splashed cold water on her face. Then she pulled a turtleneck from her drawer, the one she had started wearing every day to hide the evidence. Long sleeves, high collar, a 6-year-old dressed for survival. When James returned from his errands 30 minutes later, Zoe was sitting at the kitchen table pretending to color in a book. Her hand was hidden under the table. Her throat was covered. Her face was carefully blank. "Miss Zoe." James set down the grocery bags, his weathered face creasing with concern. "You look pale, child." Are you feeling all right? I'm fine, Mr. James. Are you sure you seem sad? Zoe looked up at the old butler, the man who had been kind to her since her mother died, the man who sometimes snuck her extra food when Victoria wasn't watching. She wanted to tell him. God, she wanted to tell someone, but Victoria's words echoed in her mind. I know people, bad people, people who take little girls and sell them to monsters. I'm just tired, Zoe said. I didn't sleep good last night. James studied her for a long moment. Something was wrong. He had known it for months. But every time he tried to ask, the child shut down. Every time he tried to help, Victoria appeared like a vulture watching, waiting, warning him with her eyes. Well, how about I make you some hot chocolate that always helped my granddaughter when she was feeling low? Zoe's eyes flickered with something like hope. Really, our little secret. He moved to the stove, his back to her, and Zoe allowed herself one small smile. James was safe. James was kind. James was the only person in this house who didn't want to hurt her. But even James couldn't protect her from Victoria. Nobody could. 3 days later, Marcus Thompson's private jet touched down at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. He had caught an earlier flight wanting to surprise his family, wanting to see the look on Zoe's face when he walked through the door. Samuel, his driver of 15 years, was waiting at the terminal. Welcome home, Mr. Thompson. Samuel opened the rear door of the black Mercedes, his expression carefully neutral. How was Dubai? Long. Glad to be back. Marcus slid into the leather seat, already loosening his tie. How are things at the house? Samuel hesitated. It was barely a pause. Half a second, maybe less. But Marcus noticed. He had built his fortune on reading people, on catching the small tells that revealed what words tried to hide. Samuel. Everything's fine, sir. Samuel's eyes met Marcus's in the rearview mirror, then quickly looked away. Mrs. Thompson has been keeping busy. There it was again. That hesitation, that careful choice of words. Marcus wanted to push further, but exhaustion was pulling at him. 2 months of 18-hour days had taken their toll. He leaned back against the headrest and closed his eyes, deciding to let it go, for now. The Mercedes wound through Atlanta traffic past gleaming skyscrapers and tree-lined streets, heading north toward Buckhead and the mansion that had once been filled with love and loud and laughter. Marcus dreamed. He dreamed of Adrienne, his first wife, the love of his life. She was standing in their garden, surrounded by roses, her dark skin glowing in the sunlight, her smile warm and welcoming. She was saying something, but he couldn't hear the words. She was reaching for him, but her hand passed through his like smoke. And then she was gone, and in her place stood Zoe, but not the Zoe he remembered. This Zoe was thin, hollow-eyed, covered in bruises. She opened her mouth to speak, and blood poured out instead of words. "Daddy," she gasped, "why didn't you save me?" Marcus jerked awake, his heart pounding. "We're here, sir," Samuel said quietly. The mansion rose before them, red brick and white columns sprawling across 2 acres of manicured lawn. It had been Adrienne's dream home, the house she had designed during the early years of their marriage. Now it felt different, colder, like something poisonous had seeped into its foundations. Marcus shook off the feeling. He was tired, jet-lagged. The dream had unsettled him, but it was just a dream. He grabbed the gift-wrapped box from the seat beside him, and stepped out of the car. The Moroccan doll inside was handcrafted with dark skin and curly hair, dressed in traditional clothing. He had searched 3 countries to find a doll that looked like his daughter. Zoe had asked for one last Christmas, and he had promised to find the perfect one. He was a year late, but he had kept his promise. The front door was unlocked. Marcus stepped into the foyer, immediately struck by the silence. It was Saturday afternoon. Zoe should have been watching cartoons or playing in the yard or pestering James for cookies. Instead, nothing. "Hello?" His voice echoed off the marble floors. "Victoria, Zoe, Daddy's home." Footsteps on the stairs. Victoria descended like a queen, dressed in cream-colored silk, her blonde hair perfect, her smile perfect, everything about her absolutely perfect. "Marcus, you're early." She glided toward him, wrapping her arms around his neck, pressing her lips to his. She tasted like expensive wine and something else, something bitter. "I wasn't expecting you until tonight." "I wanted to surprise my girls." Marcus looked past her toward the empty hallway. "Where's Zoe?" "Upstairs, resting." Victoria's hand rested on his chest, her eyes full of manufactured concern. "She hasn't been feeling well. Poor thing. I've been taking care of her all day, but you know how she gets." "I should go see her." "Of course." Victoria stepped aside, her smile never wavering, but Marcus caught something flicker in her eyes. something cold, something calculating. He dismissed it. Victoria was his wife. She loved Zoe. She had promised to be a good mother. He climbed the stairs 2 at a time, gift box tucked under his arm, anticipation building with each step. Zoe's room was at the end of the hall, the door decorated with hand-painted butterflies that Adrienne had stenciled during her pregnancy. Marcus knocked softly. "Zoe, baby girl." "It's Daddy. Can I come in?" Silence. He pushed the door open. The room was dark curtains, pulled tight against the afternoon sun. Zoe was curled on her bed, facing the wall, clutching something to her chest. Her old doll, the one Adrienne had given her. Zoe. She didn't move. Marcus crossed to the bed and sat on the edge, reaching out to touch her shoulder. She flinched. The movement was small, but unmistakable. His daughter had flinched away from his touch like she expected to be hit. "Baby, it's me. It's Daddy. I'm home." Slowly, Zoe turned. And Marcus Thompson, billionaire visionaries, a man who had stared down boardrooms full of sharks without blinking, felt his entire world collapse. Her eyes were red and swollen, ringed with dark circles that spoke of sleepless nights. Her cheeks, once round and healthy, had hollowed out. Her lips were cracked and dry. But worst of all were the marks. Angry red welts around her throat, purple bruises disappearing beneath her collar, the unmistakable evidence of violence. "What happened to you?" Marcus's voice came out strangled. "Zoe, what happened to your neck?" "Who did this?" "Nobody?" Her voice was flat, dead. "I fell." "You fell?" "On the stairs." "Zoe." He tried to keep his voice gentle, but it shook with barely controlled rage. "Tell me the truth, please. Who hurt you?" Tears spilled down her cheeks. She shook her head violently, clutching her doll tighter. "Nobody hurt me. I'm fine. Please, Daddy, I'm fine." He reached for her again, and again she flinched. This time, the movement caused her sleeve to ride up, revealing a ring of purple bruises around her wrist. Finger-shaped, the kind left by someone gripping too hard. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. Zoe. Was it Victoria? The terror that flashed in his daughter's eyes told him everything he needed to know. "No." She scrambled backward on the bed, pressing herself against the headboard. No, I didn't say anything. Please don't tell her I said anything. She'll hurt me. She'll lock me in the closet again. She'll lock you in the closet." Marcus's voice dropped to a whisper. "She locks you in a closet." Zoe clamped her hands over her mouth, her eyes wide with panic. She had said too much. She had broken the rules. Victoria was going to find out. Victoria was going to punish her. "Baby, listen to me." Marcus moved slowly, carefully, like approaching a wounded animal. "I need you to tell me everything. Everything that woman has done to you. I promise she will never hurt you again, but I need to know the truth." Zoe stared at him for a long moment. Her father, the man who was supposed to protect her, the man who had left her alone with a monster for 8 months. And then the dam broke. She told him about the choking, the hitting, the slapping, the kicking. She told him about being denied food for days at a time, about scrubbing floors until her hands bled, about the names Victoria called her when no one else was around. Worthless, stupid, ugly, burden. She told him about the closet under the stairs, the dark, cramped space where Victoria locked her when she was disappointed. Sometimes for hours, sometimes overnight. Sometimes she lost track of time, entirely sitting in the blackness, crying for her mother, praying for rescue that never came. She told him about the threats, the terrible, terrifying threats. "She said she knows bad people," Zoe whispered, her voice barely audible. "People who take little girls and sell them to monsters in other countries. She said if I ever told anyone, she would make me disappear. She said you wouldn't even look for me because I'm too much trouble." Marcus gathered his daughter into his arm, holding her against his chest, feeling her thin body tremble with sobs that seemed to come from somewhere deep and broken inside her. "I'm sorry," he breathed into her hair. "I'm so sorry, baby. I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know." "Are you mad at me?" Her voice was muffled against his shirt. "Mad at you? No, never. I'm mad at myself for leaving you. I'm mad at her for hurting you, but I could never, ever be mad at you." "She said you don't love me. She said that's why you're always gone, because you can't stand to be around me." "That's a lie." Marcus pulled back, cupping his daughter's face in his hands, forcing her to look at him. "That is a lie, Zoe. I love you more than anything in this world. More than my company. More than my money. More than my own life. You are everything to me. Everything. Do you understand?" Zoe searched his eyes, looking for the truth, looking for the lie. She had been deceived so many times. Victoria was so good at pretending. How could she trust anyone ever again? But this was her daddy. Her daddy who used to carry her on his shoulders. Her daddy who used to read her bedtime stories. Her daddy who used to sing her mother's favorite song when she couldn't sleep. Maybe she could still believe in him. "I understand," she whispered. "Good." Marcus wiped the tears from her cheeks with his thumbs. "Now I need you to do something for me. I need you to stay in this room and lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except me or James. Can you do that?" Fear flashed in Zoe's eyes. "Where are you going?" "I'm going to talk to Victoria." "Daddy, no." Zoe grabbed his arm, panic rising in her voice. "She'll get mad. She'll hurt me. Please don't." "She's never going to hurt you again." His voice was steel-wrapped in velvet. "I promise you that, Zoe. On your mother's grave, I promise. Now lock this door and wait for me. Okay?" Zoe nodded slowly, reluctantly. She didn't want him to go. She didn't want to be alone. But she trusted him. Despite everything, she still trusted him. Marcus kissed her forehead and walked to the door. He paused at the threshold, looking back at his daughter, this thin, frightened shell of the vibrant girl he had left behind. "I love you, baby girl." "I love you too, Daddy." He stepped out and closed the door behind him. A moment later, he heard the lock click into place. Then Marcus Thompson walked downstairs to confront the monster he had brought into his home. Victoria was in the living room, perched on the white sofa like a spider at the center of her web. She was scrolling through her phone, her legs crossed, her posture relaxed. The picture of innocence. She looked up as Marcus entered, her smile bright and warm. "How is she?" "Poor thing has been under the weather all—" "Stop." The single word cut through the air like a blade. Victoria's smile faltered. "Marcus, what's wrong?" "I know what you've been doing." "I don't know what you're talking about." "The hitting, the choking, the starvation, the closet." Marcus's voice was shaking with barely controlled fury. "My daughter just told me everything. Everything, Victoria." For a moment, just a moment, something ugly flickered across Victoria's face. Then the mask slid back into place and tears began to glisten in her eyes. "Oh, Marcus." She stood moving toward him with outstretched hands. "Sweetheart, no. Whatever Zoe told you, she's confused. She's been acting out for months, lying, hurting herself for attention. I've been trying so hard to help her, but she's disturbed. She needs professional help. I was going to suggest—" "I saw the bruises." Victoria stopped mid-step. "Finger marks around her throat." Marcus continued, his voice deadly quiet. "Finger marks around her wrist. Ribs I can count through her shirt. That's not confusion. That's not lying. That's abuse. She's clumsy. She falls. She hurts herself and then blames me because she knows you'll believe. She flinches when I touch her." Marcus stepped closer, and for the first time, he saw fear flicker in Victoria's eyes. "My daughter flinches away from my hand like she's been trained to expect pain, like she's been conditioned to be afraid of being touched. That is not the behavior of a loved child. That is the behavior of an abused one." Victoria's expression shifted. The tears dried up. The sweetness vanished. And what emerged was something cold and calculating, something that had been hiding beneath the surface all along. "All right, Marcus, you want the truth? Let me give you the truth." She pulled out her phone and showed him the screen. It was a text conversation with someone saved as D. "Is everything in place?" "Almost. He suspects nothing. The girl is broken, won't say a word." "Good. Once we have control, we won't have to pretend anymore." "What about him?" "Leave that to me. Accidents happen all the time." Marcus felt the world tilt beneath his feet. "What is this insurance?" Victoria tucked the phone back into her pocket. "Your brother and I have been planning this for 2 years. Who do you think introduced us? Who do you think told me exactly how to get close to you, exactly when you'd be vulnerable, exactly what kind of woman you'd fall for after poor Adrian died?" "Derek." The name came out as a whisper. "Derek." Victoria smiled, and it was the smile of a snake about to strike. "He's been in debt for years. Gambling, bad investments. He owes money to some very dangerous people. And you, Marcus, with your billions and your empire and your precious little daughter, you were the solution to all his problems, and mine. What were you planning?" "What do you think?" Victoria laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "Your will leaves everything to me. The company, the properties, the investments, even control of Zoe's trust fund until she turns 18. All we had to do was wait for the right moment, arrange a tragic accident, and boom. Derek and I split everything down the middle." Marcus felt like he had been punched in the gut. "You were going to kill me." "We're going to—" Victoria's eyes glittered. "Still are, sweetheart. The only question now is timing." She moved toward the door, but Marcus grabbed her arm, spinning her around. "You're not going anywhere." "Let go of me. You think you can threaten my daughter, plot to murder me, and just walk away?" Victoria leaned in close, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I think you need to consider your options very carefully, Marcus, because right now, Derek is in this house. He came through the service entrance while you were upstairs playing daddy, and if I don't text him in the next 5 minutes, he's going to go up to Zoe's room and finish what I started." Marcus's blood turned to ice. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Victoria tilted her head. "Your brother has nothing left to lose. He's desperate, and desperate men do desperate things. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to let go of me. You're going to sit down, and we're going to have a civilized conversation about how to move forward, because if you don't..." She let the threat hang in the air. Marcus released her arm. His mind was racing. Derek was here, in the house, near Zoe. "Good boy." Victoria straightened her blouse. "Now let's talk about..." Marcus didn't hear the rest. He was already running, taking the stairs 3 at a time, his heart pounding with terror. "Please, God, please let her be okay." He reached Zoe's door and pounded on it. "Zoe, baby, open the door. It's Daddy." No response. He pounded harder. "Zoe." Still nothing. Marcus stepped back and kicked the door with everything he had. The lock splintered. The door flew open. The room was empty. The window was open, curtains billowing in the breeze. And on the bed, pinned under a knife, was a note written in Derek's handwriting, "Too slow, brother. If you want to see her again, come to the warehouse on Mitchell Street. Alone, 1 hour, bring the passwords to all your accounts, or don't, your choice." Marcus stood frozen, the note crumpling in his trembling hand. His daughter was gone. His brother had taken her, and he had 1 hour to save her life. Behind him, he heard Victoria's heels clicking up the stairs. She appeared in the doorway, saw the empty room, the open window, the note in his hand, and she smiled. "Clock's ticking, Marcus. What are you going to do?" Marcus turned to face her, and what she saw in his eyes made her take an involuntary step backward. This was not the broken, desperate man she had expected. This was a predator. "I'm going to get my daughter back," he said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "And then I'm going to destroy you. Both of you. I'm going to take apart everything you've built, expose every crime you've committed, and make sure you spend the rest of your miserable lives rotting in prison cells where no one will ever hear you scream." He walked past her shoulder, checking her against the doorframe. 1 hour, Victoria called after him. "Don't be late." But Marcus was already gone, his phone pressed to his ear. "Raymond, it's Marcus. I need you now. They took my daughter." He had 1 hour to save Zoe. He had 1 hour to outmaneuver the 2 people who knew him best. He had 1 hour to become the monster they never expected him to be, and God help anyone who got in his way. Back in Zoe's empty room, Victoria pulled out her phone and texted Derek. "He's coming. Is everything ready?" The response came immediately. "Ready and waiting. This ends tonight." Victoria smiled and slipped the phone back into her pocket. What she didn't know was that James had been watching from the shadows of the hallway. What she didn't know was that James had already called the police. What she didn't know was that the trap she had set for Marcus was about to snap shut on her instead. The war had begun, and only one side would walk away. Marcus drove like a man possessed while weaving through Atlanta traffic, running red lights, pushing the Mercedes to its limits. His phone was on speaker, Raymond's voice filling the car. "Marcus, slow down. If you crash, you're no good to anyone. They have my daughter, Raymond, my 6-year-old daughter. I know, and we're going to get her back, but you need to think. Derek picked that warehouse for a reason. It's isolated, perfect for an ambush. I don't care if it's a trap, I'm going." "Of course you're going, but you're not going alone," Raymond's voice hardened. "I'm 15 minutes out with 3 of my guys. The police are on their way, James called 911, and I've got eyes on the warehouse from a contact. Derek is inside with the girl. Victoria is still at your house. We've got her contained." Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Zoe, is she..." "She's alive. I can see her through the window. She's scared, but she's alive." A sob escaped Marcus's throat. "Thank God. Listen to me carefully. When you get there, do not go in alone. Wait for us. We'll extract Zoe together, and we'll take Derek down without anyone getting hurt." "And if he hurts her before you get there..." Raymond was silent for a moment. "Then we'll make him wish he'd never been born." Marcus ended the call and pressed the accelerator harder. "Hold on, baby girl. Daddy's coming." At the warehouse, Zoe sat tied to a chair in the center of a vast empty space. The building was old and abandoned, the walls covered in graffiti, the floor littered with debris. Rats scurried in the shadows. The only light came from a single bare bulb hanging overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow glow. Derek Thompson paced in front of her, his expensive suit wrinkled, his hair disheveled, his eyes wild with a cocktail of desperation and excitement. "Don't cry," he said, but there was no kindness in his voice. "This will all be over soon, one way or another." "I want my daddy," Zoe whispered. "Your daddy is on his way, but whether he walks out of here alive depends on how cooperative he is." Derek stopped pacing and crouched in front of her, studying her face. "You know you look just like your mother. Same eyes, same stubborn chin. Adrian never liked me either." "Don't talk about my mommy," Derek laughed. "There's that fire. Victoria was right about you. You're tougher than you look." He stood and walked to the window, peering out at the empty street. "But tough doesn't matter when you're 6 years old and tied to a chair. Does it?" Zoe didn't answer. She was too busy working on the ropes around her wrists. Her daddy had taught her about knots once. On a camping trip back when Mommy was still alive and everything was happy, he had shown her how to tie them and how to untie them. It was a game. A fun game. Now it might save her life. She twisted her wrists, feeling the rope loosen slightly. Not enough. Not yet. But if she kept working... "He's here," Derek said, suddenly pulling a gun from his waistband. "Right on time." Through the window, Zoe could see the headlights of her father's car approaching. Daddy. Daddy was here. But so was the gun in her uncle's hand. And Zoe suddenly understood that this might not end with a rescue. This might end with blood. Marcus pulled up to the warehouse and killed the engine. The building loomed before him, dark and menacing, a perfect place for an ambush. Raymond's words echoed in his mind. "Wait for backup. Don't go in alone." But Zoe was inside. His daughter was inside, tied up and terrified, held at gunpoint by his own brother. Waiting was not an option. He stepped out of the car and walked toward the warehouse entrance, his hands raised, showing he was unarmed. The door was slightly ajar, yellow light spilling through the gap. "Derek," he called out. "I'm here. I'm alone, just like you asked." The door swung open. Derek stood silhouetted in the light, gun raised, a manic grin on his face. "Brother, so glad you could make it." "Where's Zoe?" "Inside. Safe. For now." Derek gestured with the gun. "Come in. Let's have a family reunion." Marcus walked into the warehouse. His eyes adjusted to the dim light, and his heart shattered all over again. Zoe was tied to a chair in the center of the room, her small body trembling, her face streaked with tears. But when she saw him, something sparked in her eyes. Hope. "Daddy?" "I'm here, baby." Marcus started toward her, but Derek stepped into his path, gun pressed against his chest. "Not so fast. We need to discuss terms first." "What do you want, Derek? Money, the company? I'll give you whatever you want. Just let her go." "Oh, it's too late for negotiations, brother." Derek's voice dripped with bitterness. "You had everything. The looks, the brains, Mom and Dad's love. And what did I get? Scraps, leftovers, the constant reminder that I would never measure up to the great Marcus Thompson." "Derek, don't." The gun pressed harder. "Don't patronize me. Don't pretend you ever cared. You were too busy building your empire to notice that your own brother was drowning. I tried to help you. The loans, the job offers, you turned them all down. I didn't want your charity." Derek's shout echoed through the warehouse. "I wanted respect, I wanted to matter, and now finally I will." He pulled out his phone and thrust it toward Marcus. "The passwords. To every account, every investment, every offshore fund. Transfer it all to me right now, and I'll let you both walk away." Marcus looked at the phone, then at his daughter, then at his brother, and he made a decision. "No," Derek blinked. "No." "You heard me? No, I'm not giving you a single cent." "Then she dies." Derek swung the gun toward Zoe. "Is that what you want? To watch your daughter die because of your stupid pride? You're not going to kill her." "You don't think so." "I know so." Marcus stepped forward, his voice eerily calm. "Because if you kill her, you have no leverage. I walk away, call the police, and you spend the rest of your life in prison. Or worse. You know the kind of people you owe money to. You think they'll let you live if you can't pay them back." Derek's hand trembled. The gun wavered. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Marcus took another step. "I've spent my entire career reading people, Derek. I know when someone is desperate, and you are desperate. You're scared. You're in over your head, and you're looking for a way out that doesn't exist. Shut up. Let her go. Let her go, and I'll help you. Really help you this time. We'll figure this out together." I said, "Shut up." Derek raised the gun, pointed it directly at Marcus's face. And then everything happened at once. The warehouse doors exploded inward. Police flooded the building. Flashlights, blazing guns, drawn voices shouting commands. "Police, drop your weapon, get on the ground." Derek spun, firing wildly. The shots went wide, hitting nothing. Within seconds, he was tackled to the floor, the gun knocked from his hand, his arms wrenched behind his back. Marcus ran to Zoe, dropping to his knees beside her chair, working frantically at the ropes. "I've got you, baby. I've got you. You're safe now." "Daddy?" She was crying, laughing, trembling all at once. "Daddy, you came?" "I will always come for you." The last rope fell away. Always. No matter what. He scooped her into his arm and held her tight, feeling her small arms wrap around his neck, feeling her heartbeat against his chest, feeling the overwhelming relief of a nightmare finally ending. Behind them, Derek was being hauled to his feet, handcuffs glinting in the flashlight beams. "This isn't over, Marcus," he screamed. "You hear me? This isn't over." But Marcus didn't turn around, didn't acknowledge him, didn't give him the satisfaction. He just held his daughter and walked toward the exit, toward the flashing lights of police cars and ambulances, toward the rest of their lives. "Is the bad man going to jail?" Zoe whispered. "Yes, baby, the bad man is going to jail." What about Mommy Victoria?" Marcus felt his jaw tighten. "She's going to jail too, for a very, very long time." "Good." Zoe buried her face in his shoulder. "I don't want to see her ever again." "You won't." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "I promise. You'll never see her again." As they emerged from the warehouse, Raymond was waiting, his face grim but relieved. "You were supposed to wait for backup." "She's my daughter." Raymond nodded slowly. "Yeah, I would have done the same thing." An EMT approached, blanket in hand, but Zoe clung tighter to her father. "I don't want to let go." "You don't have to." Marcus adjusted his grip, holding her more securely. "I've got you. I'm not letting go either." And he meant it. He would never let go again. 3 hours later, Marcus sat in the police station, Zoe asleep in his lap, wrapped in a blanket. Detective LaToya Harris sat across from him, her notepad open, her expression professional but kind. "Victoria Thompson has been taken into custody," she said. "She's being charged with child abuse conspiracy to commit murder and kidnapping. Between the evidence your butler provided, the text messages, and your brother's statement, she's looking at 40 to 50 years. Derek. Same charges, plus possession of an illegal firearm and aggravated assault. He's trying to cut a deal offering to testify against Victoria in exchange for a reduced sentence." "What kind of reduction?" 20 years instead of 40. He'll still die in prison." Marcus looked down at his sleeping daughter, her face peaceful for the first time in months. "Good. There's something else." Detective Harris leaned forward. "In Victoria's phone, we found evidence of at least 2 other victims. Other wealthy men she targeted before you. One died in a car accident. The other lost everything in a divorce that destroyed his reputation." Marcus closed his eyes. "So I wasn't the first." "No, but you'll be the last. Thanks to you and your daughter, she's never going to hurt anyone again." "My daughter," Marcus's voice broke. "She's the brave one. She survived 8 months of hell and never gave up hope. I'm just the father who failed her." "You didn't fail her." Detective Harris's voice softened. "You came for her. When it mattered most, you came for her. That's what she'll remember." Marcus looked down at Zoe, her small hand curled around his finger, her breathing slow and steady. Maybe the detective was right. Maybe the healing could begin now. Maybe they could put this nightmare behind them and find their way back to each other. It wouldn't be easy. There would be therapy sessions and nightmares and long, hard days of rebuilding trust. There would be moments when Zoe flinched away from him, moments when the shadows of the past crept back in. But they would face it together. Father and daughter. Survivors. Marcus leaned down and pressed a kiss to Zoe's forehead. "I love you, baby girl." "Love you too, Daddy," she murmured in her sleep. Outside, the sun was beginning to rise over Atlanta, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. A new day was dawning, and for the first time in a very long time, Marcus Thompson believed that everything was going to be okay. 3 days had passed since the warehouse. Zoe had not spoken a single word. Marcus sat beside her hospital bed, watching her stare at the ceiling with empty eyes. The doctors had treated her physical wounds, the bruises around her throat, the marks on her wrist, the malnutrition that had stolen pounds from her small frame. But the wounds inside, the ones no medicine could reach, those remained untouched. "Mr. Thompson, Dr. Angela Foster stood in the doorway, her gray-streaked locks pulled back, her expression gentle but serious. "Can I speak with you outside?" Marcus looked at Zoe. She didn't acknowledge him, didn't blink, didn't move. "I'll be right back, baby girl," he whispered. Nothing. He followed Dr. Foster into the hallway, his heart heavy as a stone. "She's experiencing acute traumatic stress," Dr. Foster said quietly. "The silence is a defense mechanism. Her brain is trying to protect her from memories too painful to process. How do I help her? You be patient. You be present. You don't push." Dr. Foster placed a hand on his arm. "Healing isn't linear, Marcus. There will be setbacks. There will be moments when you feel like you're losing her all over again. But if you stay consistent, if you prove to her that you're not going anywhere, she will find her way back. And if she doesn't, she will." Dr. Foster's voice was firm. "I've seen children survive horrors you can't imagine and come out the other side. Zoe is strong. She held on for 8 months. She didn't break. She bent, but she didn't break. That tells me everything I need to know about her resilience." Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. "There's something else," Dr. Foster continued. "I'd like to start therapy sessions with Zoe as soon as she's discharged. 3 times a week initially, then we'll adjust based on her progress. I'd also recommend family therapy sessions where you and Zoe work through this together. Whatever she needs, whatever it takes." "Good." Dr. Foster smiled slightly. "That's exactly what a father should say." Marcus returned to Zoe's room. She was still staring at the ceiling, but something had changed. Her hand had moved, just slightly, reaching toward the edge of the bed, reaching toward the chair where he had been sitting. He sat down and took her hand in his. Her fingers tightened around his just a little. It wasn't words, it wasn't a smile, but it was something. And for now, something was enough. 1 week after the warehouse, Zoe was discharged from the hospital. Marcus had transformed the mansion during her stay. Every trace of Victoria had been erased. Her clothes, her jewelry, her perfume, everything was gone, donated, or destroyed. The guest room where she had slept was completely redecorated, stripped down to bare walls and filled with children's books and stuffed animals. The closet under the stairs, the one Victoria had used as a prison, had been sealed shut and converted into a reading nook with soft cushions, fairy lights, and Zoe's favorite picture books. James had helped with everything. The old butler had barely slept since that terrible night, haunted by guilt over what he had witnessed and failed to stop. But Marcus had forgiven him. They had both been deceived. They had both been manipulated. And they had both loved Zoe in their own ways, trying to protect her, when the monster was too clever to catch. "Welcome home, Miss Zoe," James said as they walked through the front door. His voice cracked slightly. "I made your favorite cookies, the ones with the chocolate chips." Zoe looked at him with those hollow eyes. For a moment, Marcus feared she wouldn't respond. Then slowly she nodded. It was the first acknowledgement she had given anyone besides her father in over a week. James blinked rapidly, turning away to hide his tears. "I'll bring them up to your room." "Actually," Marcus said, "I thought we might eat them together, in the kitchen, like we used to." Zoe's grip on his hand tightened. He felt her hesitation, her fear of that room where so much pain had occurred. "We don't have to," he added quickly. "We can eat anywhere you want." Zoe was quiet for a long moment. Then she looked up at him with something new in her eyes. Not hope exactly, but maybe the memory of hope. The ghost of what hope used to feel like. "The kitchen," she whispered. It was the first word she had spoken in 8 days. Marcus felt his heart crack open with relief. "The kitchen it is." They walked together, father and daughter, into the room where Victoria had once held Zoe by the throat, where she had starved her, terrorized her, broken her down piece by piece. But Victoria was gone now, and Zoe was taking her home back. 2 weeks after the warehouse, the nightmares began. Marcus was jolted awake at 2 a.m. by a scream that seemed to come from everywhere at once. He was out of bed and running before his eyes fully opened, his bare feet pounding down the hallway toward Zoe's room. She was tangled in her sheets, thrashing, sobbing, her small body drenched in sweat. "No, please, I'll be good, don't put me in there, please, don't put me in the dark." Marcus gathered her into his arm, holding her tight against his chest. "Zoe, baby, wake up! It's Daddy! You're safe! You're safe!" Her eyes flew open, wild with terror. For a horrible moment, she didn't recognize him. She fought against his grip, screaming, clawing at his arms. "It's me! It's Daddy! Look at me! Zoe, look at me!" Something in his voice broke through. Zoe stopped struggling, her eyes focused. And then she collapsed against him, sobbing so hard her entire body shook. "She was there," Zoe gasped between sobs. "She was in my dream. She was dragging me to the closet. I couldn't stop her. I couldn't get away. She's gone, baby. She's in jail. She can never hurt you again. But I still see her. Every time I close my eyes, she's still there." Marcus held his daughter tighter, his own tears falling into her curly hair. How did you fight an enemy that lived inside a child's mind? How did you protect her from memories that attacked in the darkness? "I know, baby. I know." His voice was rough with emotion. "But I'm here. I'm right here. And every time you see her, every time you're scared, you call for me. Okay, day or night. I will always come. I will always be here." "Promise." "I promise. On your mother's grave. On everything I am. I promise." Zoe's sobs gradually quieted. Her breathing slowed. But she didn't let go of his shirt, her small fists clutching the fabric like anchors. "Can you stay?" she whispered. "Just for tonight? I'll stay every night, as long as you need me." Marcus shifted onto her bed, pulling her close, letting her curl against his chest like she had when she was a baby. Within minutes, her breathing deepened into sleep, but Marcus didn't close his eyes. He lay awake in the darkness, standing guard against the monsters in his daughter's dreams. He would do this every night for the next 3 months. 4 weeks after the warehouse, Zoe returned to school. Marcus had considered homeschooling, had researched tutors and online programs, anything to spare her the ordeal of facing the world. But Dr. Foster had been firm. She needs normalcy. She needs routine. Hiding her away will only reinforce her fear that the world isn't safe. So on a Monday morning in late October, Marcus drove Zoe to Riverside Academy, her small hand gripping his with desperate strength. "I don't want to go," she said for the 15th time. "I know, baby." "What if the other kids are mean?" "Then you tell Miss Harper, or you tell me, and we'll deal with it together." What if they know about what happened?" Marcus pulled into the parking lot and turned to face his daughter. Her eyes were huge with fear, her lower lip trembling. "Listen to me, Zoe. What happened to you was not your fault. It was not your shame. You did nothing wrong. The people who hurt you, they're the ones who should be ashamed. Not you, never you." "But what if they think I'm weird?" "Then they're wrong. You're not weird. You're brave. You're strong. You're a survivor." Marcus cupped her face in his hands. "And anyone who can't see how amazing you are doesn't deserve to know you." Zoe stared at him for a long moment. Then impossibly she smiled. It was small, it was fragile, but it was real. "Okay, Daddy, I'll try." "That's my girl." He walked her to the classroom door where Miss Harper was waiting. The young teacher's eyes were warm with understanding as she took Zoe's hand. "Welcome back, sweetheart. We missed you." Zoe looked back at Marcus one more time. He gave her a thumbs up and a smile that he prayed looked more confident than he felt. Then she disappeared into the classroom, and Marcus was left standing in the hallway, fighting the urge to burst in and carry her back home where he could protect her from everything and everyone. "Mr. Thompson." He turned. Miss Harper had stepped back into the hallway, her expression serious. "She's going to be okay. I'll keep a close eye on her, and I've spoken to the other teachers. No one will ask questions. No one will pressure her. She'll have all the space she needs." "Thank you." Marcus's voice was rough. "For everything. For being the one who noticed. For calling me." Miss Harper's eyes glistened. "I just wish I had noticed sooner. Maybe if I had pushed harder, asked more questions." "You did what you could. That's more than most people." She nodded, blinking back tears. "I'll take care of her. I promise." Marcus watched her return to the classroom. Through the window, he could see Zoe taking her seat, her posture stiff, her eyes darting around nervously. But then another little girl approached her, said something Marcus couldn't hear, and Zoe's shoulders relaxed just a fraction. Maybe Dr. Foster was right. Maybe normal was exactly what his daughter needed. 6 weeks after the warehouse, the pretrial hearing began. Marcus had been dreading this day. He had hoped to shield Zoe from the legal proceedings entirely, but the prosecutor had been clear. "We need her testimony, Mr. Thompson. She's our star witness. Without her, Victoria's defense team will claim everything was exaggerated or fabricated." "She's 6 years old. She's been through hell. You want her to relive it in front of a courtroom full of strangers?" "I want to make sure the woman who hurt her never gets the chance to hurt anyone else. Don't you want the same thing?" So here they were, in a sterile courthouse corridor, waiting to enter a room where Zoe would have to face Victoria for the first time since that terrible night. "Daddy, I'm scared." Zoe was pressed against his side, her new doll clutched to her chest alongside the old one. She had refused to leave either behind. "I know, baby, but remember what Dr. Foster said, being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do hard things even when you are scared. I don't feel brave. That's okay. I'll be brave enough for both of us. The courtroom doors opened. The prosecutor, a fierce woman named Patricia Chen, stepped out. We're ready for her. Marcus knelt in front of his daughter, taking both her small hands in his. Listen to me. All you have to do is tell the truth. Just like you told me. Just like you told Dr. Foster. You're not going to get in trouble. You're not going to make anything worse. You're just going to tell them what happened, and then we're going to go home and have ice cream. Okay? Chocolate. Whatever flavor you want. Zoe took a deep breath. Her chin lifted slightly, and for just a moment Marcus saw a flash of Adrienne in her eyes, that same fierce determination that had made him fall in love with his wife all those years ago. Okay, let's do it. They walked into the courtroom together. Victoria was already there, seated at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, her blonde hair lank and unwashed, her face pale and drawn. When she saw Zoe, something flickered in her eyes. Hatred, fear, Marcus couldn't tell, and he didn't care. He guided Zoe to the witness stand, helped her climb up, made sure she was comfortable. Then he stepped back, taking a seat in the gallery, his eyes never leaving his daughter. The judge, an older black woman with steel gray hair and kind eyes, leaned forward. Zoe, do you understand why you're here today? Yes, ma'am. To tell the truth about what happened. That's right. And do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I promise. Good girl. Now Ms. Chen is going to ask you some questions. Just answer as best you can. And if you need a break at any time, you just say so, okay? Zoe nodded, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Patricia Chen approached the witness stand with a gentle smile. Zoe, can you tell the court about your relationship with Victoria Thompson? Zoe's eyes darted toward Victoria, then quickly away. Her voice was barely a whisper. She hurt me. Can you tell us how she hurt you? And Zoe began to speak. She told them about the choking, the hitting, the slapping. She told them about the food she wasn't allowed to eat, the water she had to drink from the bathroom sink when no one was watching. She told them about scrubbing floors until her hands bled, about being called worthless and stupid and ugly. She told them about the closet. It was dark, Zoe said, her voice trembling but clear. So dark I couldn't see my hand, and small. I couldn't stand up or stretch out. She would lock me in there for hours, sometimes all night. I could hear the rats scratching in the walls. I was so scared. The courtroom was silent. Several jurors were openly crying. Even the judge's eyes glistened. Why didn't you tell anyone? Patricia asked softly. Because she said she would make me disappear. She said she knew bad people who take little girls and sell them to monsters. She said my daddy wouldn't even look for me because I was too much trouble. And did you believe her? Zoe's lower lip trembled. I didn't want to, but Daddy was always gone. He was always working, and Victoria was always there, and she was so mean, and I didn't know who would help me. I didn't know who I could trust. Marcus felt his heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. His daughter had been alone, truly alone, surrounded by adults who should have protected her, and she had trusted none of them. That was his fault. He would carry that guilt for the rest of his life. The defense attorney, a slick man named Robert Hayes, approached for cross-examination. His smile was friendly, but his eyes were cold. Zoe, you have quite an imagination, don't you? Patricia was on her feet immediately. Objection, badgering the witness. Sustained. The judge's voice was sharp. Mr. Hayes, this witness is 6 years old. I suggest you remember that. Hayes inclined his head. Of course, Your Honor. He turned back to Zoe. Zoe, isn't it true that you often told stories, made things up? Objection, foundation. I'll allow it. The witness may answer. Zoe looked confused. I don't understand. It's a simple question. Do you sometimes make things up? Tell lies. I mean, sometimes I played pretend with my dolls. So you admit that you don't always tell the truth. I'm telling the truth now. Zoe's voice rose, panic creeping in. I'm not lying. She hurt me. She really hurt me. Your Honor, the defense is clearly attempting to intimidate a child witness. Mr. Hayes, final warning. One more inappropriate question and I'll hold you in contempt. Hayes smiled thinly. No further questions. Zoe was trembling when Marcus helped her down from the stand. He pulled her into his arm, feeling her shake against him. You did so good, baby. I'm so proud of you. Did I mess up? The mean lawyer said I was lying. You didn't mess up. You told the truth. That's all anyone can ask. Did he? They left the courtroom together, passing Victoria's table on the way. For one terrible moment, Victoria's eyes met Zoe's, and Victoria smiled. It was the smile of a predator. The smile that had haunted Zoe's nightmares for months. The smile that said, even from behind bars, even in an orange jumpsuit, I still have power over you. Zoe whimpered and buried her face in her father's chest. Marcus stared Victoria down, his expression promising violence, promising retribution, promising that this woman would never touch his daughter again. Victoria's smile faltered. She looked away first, and Marcus carried his daughter out of the courthouse into the sunlight away from the monster who had tried to destroy her. But he knew this wasn't over. The trial was still weeks away, and Victoria still had one more card to play. 8 weeks after the warehouse, Marcus received a phone call that changed everything. He was in his home office reviewing documents for the upcoming trial when his private line rang. The number was blocked. "Hello, Marcus Thompson?" The voice was deep unfamiliar with a slight accent Marcus couldn't place. "You don't know me, but I know you, and I know what your wife and brother were really planning." Marcus's blood ran cold. "Who is this, or be a friend, or an enemy? That depends entirely on you. What do you want?" "I want to meet. Tonight. There's a bar on Peachtree Street called the Blue Room. Back booth. 9 o'clock. Come alone." "Why should I trust you?" "Because I have information that will put Victoria away for life. Information about what she did before she met you. Before she became Victoria Crawford." The voice paused. "She's killed before Marcus, and she was planning to kill again. You and your daughter both." The line went dead. Marcus sat motionless, the phone still pressed to his ear. His mind was racing. This could be a trap. Another scheme from Victoria's network. Another threat to his family. But what if it wasn't? What if there was evidence out there that could destroy Victoria once and for all? He made a decision. At 8:45 that night, after making sure Zoe was safely asleep with James watching over her, Marcus drove to Peachtree Street. The Blue Room was a dimly lit establishment with jazz playing, softly in the background, and a clientele that seemed to value their privacy. He found the back booth. A woman was waiting. She was in her 40s with dark hair streaked with gray and eyes that had seen too much. A scar ran along her jawline white against her brown skin. "Mr. Thompson, I'm glad you came." "You're not who I expected." "No, the man who called you works for me. I prefer to handle important matters personally." She gestured to the seat across from her. "Please, sit." Marcus sat his body tense, ready to move at the first sign of danger. "My name is Elena Vasquez. 5 years ago, I was engaged to a man named Richard Holloway. He was wealthy, successful, kind." Her voice tightened. "He met a woman named Victoria at a charity event. Within 6 months, he had broken our engagement and married her. Within a year, he was dead. A car accident, they said. Brake failure." Marcus felt sick. "She killed him." "I could never prove it. The police ruled it an accident. The insurance company paid out. Victoria inherited everything." Elena's eyes burned with old fury. "But I knew she had done it, so I started digging, and what I found..." She slid a thick envelope across the table. Bank records, communication logs, a paper trail connecting Victoria to a network of con artists who specialize in targeting wealthy widowers. Richard wasn't her first victim, he wasn't even her second, and you, Marcus, were meant to be next. Marcus opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside were documents, photographs, transcripts. Evidence of a conspiracy that spanned years and crossed state lines. "Why are you giving me this? Because I want her to pay." Elena's voice was steel. "I want her to spend the rest of her life rotting in a cell knowing that the people she destroyed were the ones who brought her down. I couldn't save Richard, but maybe I can help you save yourself and your daughter." Marcus looked at the woman across from him. This stranger who had been carrying her own grief, her own guilt, her own desperate need for justice. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I don't know how to repay you." "Put her away. That's all the payment I need." Marcus gathered the envelope and stood. At the door, he turned back. "Elena, I'm sorry about Richard." Her eyes glistened. "I'm sorry about everything you and your daughter have been through. No child should ever suffer like that." "No," Marcus agreed. "They shouldn't." He walked out into the night, the envelope clutched against his chest. Tomorrow, he would give this to Patricia Chen. Tomorrow, the final nail would be driven into Victoria's coffin. But tonight, he was going home to hold his daughter and thank God that she was still alive. 10 weeks after the warehouse, Victoria made her move. It happened during a routine therapy session. Zoe was with Dr. Foster in the home office they had converted into a safe space, soft music playing, art supplies spread across the table. Marcus was in the kitchen with James discussing security arrangements for the upcoming trial when his phone rang. "Mr. Thompson, this is Detective Harris. We have a situation." "What kind of situation?" "Victoria Thompson escaped custody during a transfer between facilities. We believe she had help from the inside. We're locking down the city, but I need you to stay alert. She made threats during her escape, specific threats." "What threats?" "She said she was going to finish what she started, with Zoe." Marcus dropped the phone. He ran, down the hallway through the living room toward the home office where his daughter was supposed to be safe, where she was supposed to be protected, where nothing bad was ever supposed to touch her again. He threw open the door. Dr. Foster was on the floor, unconscious, blood seeping from a wound on her head. The window was open. Zoe was gone. On the wall, written in red lipstick, were 3 words that stopped Marcus's heart. "Too late, Daddy." Marcus stood frozen for exactly 3 seconds. Then he moved. "James, call 911. Dr. Foster is hurt. Zoe is missing." He was already running toward the garage, his car keys in his hand, his mind racing through possibilities. Where would Victoria take her? Where would she go? His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Mitchell Street Warehouse, 1 hour. Come alone or she dies. And this time there's no one to save you. The same warehouse, the same trap. But this time there would be no backup, no police, no Raymond Cole riding to the rescue. This time it was just Marcus and Victoria, and one of them wasn't walking out alive." He drove through the streets of Atlanta like a man possessed, weaving through traffic, running every red light, his heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. Zoe. His baby. His everything. If Victoria hurt her, if she so much as touched a hair on her head, he would kill her. He would kill her with his bare hands. The warehouse loomed ahead, dark and menacing, a nightmare made real. Marcus pulled up to the entrance and stepped out, his footsteps echoing in the empty night. "Victoria." His voice bounced off the walls. Silence answered. He pushed through the door into the same vast space where Derek had held Zoe 10 weeks ago. The same chair stood in the center of the room beneath the same bare bulb. But this time, the chair was empty. Looking for someone. Victoria stepped out of the shadows, a gun in her hand, a smile on her face. Her orange jumpsuit was gone, replaced by dark clothing. Her blonde hair was pulled back. Her eyes were wild. Where is she? Safe. For now. Victoria circled him slowly, the gun never wavering. "You ruined everything, Marcus. Everything I worked for. Everything I planned. Years of preparation destroyed because a 6-year-old couldn't keep her mouth shut. Where is my daughter?" "She's close. You'll see her soon. One way or another." Marcus forced himself to stay calm. To think. Victoria was unhinged, desperate, dangerous, but she was also arrogant. She loved to talk, to gloat. He could use that. "How did you escape?" "I have friends. Useful friends. The kind who appreciate someone willing to do whatever it takes to get what they want." Victoria laughed. "Did you really think a county jail could hold me? I've been planning this since the day you had me arrested." "Planning what?" "To finish what I started. To take everything from you. Your company, your money, your precious reputation." Her smile twisted into something ugly. "And your daughter, she's going to disappear, Marcus, just like I always promised her, and you're going to spend the rest of your life wondering what happened to her. I won't let you touch her." "You can't stop me." Victoria raised the gun, pointing it directly at his chest. "You're not in control here. You never were. I've been playing you since the day we met. Every smile, every touch, every whispered word of love, all of it was a lie. I know." Do you really?" Victoria stepped closer, close enough for Marcus to see the madness dancing in her eyes. "I watched your wife die, Marcus. I sat by her bedside in that hospital, pretending to be a concerned friend, waiting for her to take her last breath. And when she finally did, do you know what I felt?" Marcus couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. "Relief?" Victoria's voice was a whisper. Relief that the competition was finally out of the way. Adrienne was the only thing standing between me and everything I wanted, and now she's gone, just like you're about to be. She pulled the trigger, but Marcus was already moving. He dove to the side as the bullet whizzed past his ear, hitting the concrete floor where he had been standing. He rolled, came up running, and tackled Victoria before she could fire again. They went down hard, the gun skittering across the floor. Victoria screamed, clawing at his face, fighting with the desperation of a cornered animal. Marcus pinned her arms, his weight pressing her into the ground. "Where is Zoe? Where is she?" "You'll never find her," Victoria spat in his face. She's already gone. My friends have her. By morning she'll be on a plane to somewhere you'll never... A shot rang out. Victoria went still. Marcus looked up. Detective Harris stood in the doorway, her weapon drawn, smoke rising from the barrel. "The vest will hold," Harris said calmly, "but she's not going anywhere." Marcus looked down. Victoria was unconscious, a tranquilizer dart embedded in her shoulder. He had been so focused on the fight, he hadn't even noticed the police surrounding the building. "My daughter," he gasped. "She said someone has her. She said they're taking her out of the country." "We found her." Harris holstered her weapon. "She was in a van about a mile from here. 2 of Victoria's associates were trying to reach the airport. They're in custody now." Is she okay?" "She's asking for her daddy." Marcus closed his eyes. Relief flooding through him so powerfully he thought he might collapse. "Take me to her, please." "This way, Mr. Thompson." He followed Detective Harris out of the warehouse, leaving Victoria unconscious on the floor behind him. It was over. Finally, truly over, and his daughter was safe. Zoe was waiting in the back of a police car wrapped in a blanket, her eyes huge and wet with tears. When she saw Marcus, she burst out of the car and ran toward him, her small legs pumping, her arms outstretched. "Daddy!" He caught her midair, swinging her up into his arms, crushing her against his chest. She was crying, he was crying, and neither of them cared who was watching. "I knew you'd come," Zoe sobbed. "I knew you'd find me. I told them my daddy would come." "I will always come for you," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "Always. No matter what. No matter where. I will always find you." "Is the bad lady gone?" Marcus looked back at the warehouse where police were now escorting Victoria out in handcuffs, her head lolling, her body limp from the tranquilizer. "She's gone, baby. She's never going to hurt you again. I promise." Zoe buried her face in his shoulder, her small arms wrapped tightly around his neck. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, baby girl, more than anything in this world." The police lights flashed around them, red and blue, painting the night. Officers moved in organized chaos, securing the scene, processing the criminals, closing the case that had torn a family apart. But for Marcus and Zoe, the world had narrowed to just the 2 of them. Father and daughter, survivors, together. The next morning, Marcus woke to find Zoe curled against his side, her breathing slow and peaceful. For the first time in months, she had slept through the night without a single nightmare. He watched her sleep, this small miracle he had almost lost twice, and made himself a promise. No more business trips, no more 18-hour days, no more putting work before family. His empire could survive without him. His daughter could not. From now on, everything would be different. From now on, she would come first. Always and forever. The sun was rising over Atlanta, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. A new day was dawning. A new chapter was beginning. And Marcus Thompson was finally ready to be the father his daughter deserved. 12 weeks after the warehouse, the trial began. Marcus held Zoe's hand as they walked up the courthouse steps, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions, a circus of media hungry for the story of the billionaire, the monster wife, and the little girl who survived. "Mr. Thompson, how do you feel about facing Victoria in court?" "Zoe, can you tell us what happened? Is it true Victoria tried to kill you both?" Marcus shielded his daughter with his body, pushing through the crowd, his jaw clenched tight. James flanked them on one side, Raymond Cole on the other, creating a protective barrier against the chaos. "Don't look at them," Marcus murmured to Zoe. "Just keep walking. We're almost there." "There's so many people, Daddy." "I know, baby, but they can't hurt you. Nobody can hurt you anymore." They reached the courthouse doors, and the noise faded as security closed ranks behind them. Inside, the marble halls were cool and calm, quiet, a different kind of intimidating. Patricia Chen was waiting, her expression fierce and focused. "Are you ready?" Marcus looked down at Zoe, who was clutching both her dolls, her new one and her mother's old one, pressed against her chest like armor. "We're ready." The courtroom was packed. Every seat was filled. Journalists, spectators, legal observers, even a few celebrities who had become invested in the story. The case had captured national attention. A beautiful predator, a wealthy victim, a child caught in the crossfire. It was the kind of story America couldn't look away from. Victoria was already seated at the defense table, her orange jumpsuit replaced by a modest gray dress, her hair neatly styled, her expression carefully neutral. She had cleaned up well for the jury, transformed herself back into the gentle, caring woman she had pretended to be. But Marcus saw through the mask. He would always see through it now. Zoe's grip tightened as they passed Victoria's table. The little girl kept her eyes straight ahead, refusing to look at the monster who had tormented her. "You're doing great," Marcus whispered. Just a little further. They took their seats behind the prosecution. Zoe immediately climbed into her father's lap, curling against him, making herself as small as possible. The judge entered. The Honorable Ruth Washington, a black woman in her 60s, with a reputation for fairness and zero tolerance for courtroom theatrics. She had been assigned to the case specifically because of her experience with high-profile trials. All rise. Everyone stood. This court is now in session. The People versus Victoria Crawford Thompson. The charges are attempted murder in the first-degree child abuse, kidnapping, and conspiracy. How does the defendant plead? Victoria's attorney, Robert Hayes, stood. Not guilty, Your Honor, on all counts. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Not guilty. After everything. After all the evidence. Marcus felt rage surge through him, hot and bitter. Patricia Chen caught his eye and gave a small, reassuring nod. She had warned him this would happen. Victoria would fight. She would lie. She would do everything possible to escape justice. But Patricia had built an airtight case. Victoria wasn't going to win. The first witness was James. The old butler walked to the stand, with quiet dignity, his back straight, his head held high. He had been dreading this moment for weeks, but he was ready. He owed it to Zoe. He owed it to Adrienne's memory. Please state your name for the record. James Edward Washington. And what is your relationship to the Thompson family? I've been the head butler for 22 years. I served Mr. Marcus Thompson and his late wife, Adrienne. I was present when Miss Zoe was born. I have watched her grow up. And during the time Victoria Thompson was living in the household, what did you observe? James took a deep breath. I observed things that will haunt me for the rest of my life. He told them everything. He told them about the meals Zoe was denied, about the time she was forced to scrub the kitchen floor on her hands and knees while Victoria watched and sipped champagne, about the bruises he saw and pretended not to see because he was afraid of what Victoria would do. I am ashamed, James said, his voice breaking. I am deeply, deeply ashamed that I did not do more, that I allowed fear to silence me while a child suffered. Miss Zoe trusted me, and I failed her. Did Victoria Thompson ever threaten you directly? Yes. She told me that if I said anything, if I tried to interfere, she would make sure I never worked again. But more than that, she said she would take it out on Zoe. She said the child would pay for my disloyalty. And you believed her? After what I saw her do to that little girl, yes, I believed every word. Robert Hayes stood for cross-examination, his smile condescending. Mr. Washington, isn't it true that you have a drinking problem? James flinched. I used to, many years ago. So you're an admitted alcoholic. I haven't had a drink in 15 years. But your judgment has been impaired in the past. How do we know it wasn't impaired during the time you claim to have witnessed this abuse? Objection. Patricia was on her feet. Counsel is attempting to discredit the witness based on a past struggle that has no bearing on this case. Sustained. Mr. Hayes, move along. Hayes smiled thinly. No further questions? James stepped down, his shoulders slumped, his face gray with exhaustion. He had done his best. He could only hope it was enough. The second witness was Michelle Harper. Zoe's teacher walked to the stand in a simple blue dress, her hands clasped in front of her, her expression determined. She had been preparing for this moment for weeks. Miss Harper, what was your first indication that something was wrong with Zoe Thompson? She was always tired, always hungry. She would fall asleep at her desk almost every day, and at lunch she would hide food in her backpack instead of eating it. Why do you think she was hiding food? Because she wasn't getting enough at home. I watched her one day. She took the food she had hidden and ate it behind the cafeteria quickly, looking over her shoulder like she was afraid someone would catch her. Did you try to speak with her about this? Many times, but every time I asked if something was wrong, she would shut down. She would say everything was fine. She would smile, this horrible fake smile that broke my heart. Why do you think she didn't tell you the truth? Michelle's eyes glistened. Because she was terrified. I could see it in her eyes. She wanted to tell me. I think she was desperate to tell someone, but she was too afraid of what would happen if she did. What finally prompted you to contact Mr. Thompson? I saw her picking up scraps from the ground, bread that other children had thrown away, and I watched her eat it like it was a feast. Michelle's voice cracked. I couldn't stay silent anymore. I didn't care if I was wrong. I didn't care if I got in trouble. That little girl was starving and someone had to do something. Hayes approached for cross-examination. Miss Harper, aren't you currently being considered for a promotion at your school? Michelle frowned. What does that have to do with anything? Just answer the question. Yes, I've been nominated for department head. And wouldn't a high-profile case like this, where you're portrayed as a hero who saved a child, help your chances of getting that promotion? That's disgusting. Shh. Michelle's voice was ice. I didn't come forward for a promotion. I came forward because a child was being abused. I would do it again in a heartbeat, promotion or no promotion. No further questions. Michelle stepped down, her jaw tight with anger. She caught Marcus's eye as she passed, and he mouthed 2 words. Thank you. She nodded and took her seat. The third witness was Elena Vasquez, the woman who had lost her fiancé to Victoria, the woman who had spent 5 years gathering evidence, the woman who had finally found a way to bring her killer to justice. Ms. Vasquez, how did you come to know Victoria Crawford? She murdered my fiancé. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged her gavel. Order in the court. Elena waited for the noise to die down, her face calm, her eyes burning with old grief. Richard Holloway and I were engaged to be married. We had been together for 7 years. We were happy. We were planning our wedding. Her voice caught. And then Victoria appeared. She met Richard at a charity event. Within weeks, he was obsessed with her. Within months, he had broken our engagement. Within a year, he was dead. What were the circumstances of his death? A car accident. The brakes failed. He went off a cliff on Highway 1. Elena's hands clenched in her lap. The police ruled it an accident. The insurance company paid out. Victoria inherited everything. But you didn't believe it was an accident. I knew Richard. I knew his car. He was meticulous about maintenance. Those brakes had been inspected 2 weeks before the accident. They were fine. Elena's voice hardened. Someone tampered with them. Someone who stood to gain millions from his death. Did you investigate? For 5 years, I hired private investigators. I tracked Victoria's movements. I discovered that Richard wasn't her first victim. There were others. Wealthy men who met tragic ends after marrying her. Bank accounts drained. Insurance policies collected. And Victoria always walked away clean. Hayes was on his feet. Objection. This is speculation and hearsay. Your Honor, the prosecution has documentation supporting every claim Ms. Vasquez has made. I'll allow it. Continue, Ms. Chen. Patricia turned back to Elena. What evidence did you uncover? Elena pulled a folder from her bag. Bank records showing transfers from Victoria to known criminals in the weeks before Richard's death. Phone records showing contact with a man who specializes in making accidents happen. And a letter. A letter Richard wrote to me the week before he died. She held up the paper, her hand trembling. He wrote, Elena, if something happens to me, look at Victoria. I've discovered things about her. Terrible things. I'm going to confront her tonight. If I don't survive, make sure the world knows what she is. The courtroom was silent. Elena looked directly at Victoria, her eyes blazing. I kept my promise, Richard. The world knows now. Victoria's mask slipped. For just a moment, her composure cracked and something ugly flickered across her face. Hatred. Fear. The knowledge that her web of lies was unraveling. Then the mask returned, and she was once again the innocent victim falsely accused. But the jury had seen. They had all seen. The 4th day of the trial, Zoe took the stand. Marcus had begged Patricia to find another way, to spare his daughter the ordeal of facing her abuser. But the prosecutor had been firm. Her testimony is crucial. The jury needs to hear from her. They need to see the child who survived. So here they were, 7 years old now. Zoe climbing into the witness chair with her 2 dolls clutched against her chest. She looked impossibly small, impossibly young, impossibly brave. The judge leaned forward with a gentle smile. Zoe, do you know why you're here today? To tell the truth about what happened to me. That's right. And do you promise to tell the truth? I promise. My daddy says the truth is the most important thing. Your daddy is a wise man. Now Ms. Chen is going to ask you some questions. Just answer as best you can. And if you need to take a break at any time, you just tell me. Okay? Okay. Patricia approached slowly, her voice warm and reassuring. Zoe, can you tell the court about your life before Victoria came to live with you? Zoe's eyes grew distant, remembering. It was happy. My mommy was sick, but she still played with me. She still read me stories. She still told me she loved me every single day. Her voice wobbled. And then she went to heaven, and I was really, really sad. And when did Victoria enter your life? A little while after Mommy went to heaven. Daddy said she was going to be my new mommy. He said she would take care of me. And did she take care of you? Zoe's face crumpled. No. Can you tell the court what Victoria did to you? The little girl took a shaky breath. Marcus wanted to run to her to scoop her up and carry her away from this room, from these questions, from the monster sitting 20 feet away, but he stayed frozen, his fingernails cutting crescents into his palms. "She hurt me," Zoe whispered. "She hurt me all the time." "How did she hurt you?" "She hit me. She slapped me. She grabbed my arms really hard." Zoe held up her wrists even though the bruises were long healed. "She choked me. She squeezed my neck until I couldn't breathe." "Did she do anything else?" "She didn't let me eat. She said I had to earn my food, but I could never earn it. No matter how hard I tried, it was never good enough." "What happened when you were hungry?" "I had to find food myself. Late at night, when everyone was asleep, I would sneak to the kitchen and look for scraps, or I would save food from school in my backpack." Zoe's voice dropped to a whisper. "Sometimes I ate food from the garbage." A juror in the back row let out a sob. "Zoe, did Victoria ever lock you somewhere?" The little girl's whole body went rigid. Her eyes widened with remembered terror. "The closet," she breathed. "The closet under the stairs." "Can you tell us about the closet?" "It was dark, so dark I couldn't see anything, and small. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't stretch out. She would lock me in there when she was mad, sometimes for a long time, sometimes all night." Zoe was crying now, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I could hear the rats. I could feel them running over my feet, and I would scream and scream, but nobody came." "Did you ever tell anyone what was happening?" Zoe shook her head violently. "I couldn't. Victoria said if I told anyone, she would make me disappear. She said she knew bad people who take little girls and sell them to monsters. She said my daddy wouldn't even look for me because I was too much trouble." "Did you believe her?" "I didn't want to, but..." Zoe looked at Marcus, her eyes overflowing. "But Daddy was always gone while I was gone. He was always working, and I didn't know who would help me. I didn't know if anyone would believe me." Marcus couldn't take it anymore. He stood ignoring protocol, ignoring the judge's surprised look, and walked to the witness stand. He knelt beside his daughter and pulled her into his arms. "I believe you, Kamu," he said, loud enough for the whole courtroom to hear. "I will always believe you, and I am so sorry I wasn't there to protect you." Zoe buried her face in his chest, sobbing. The judge cleared her throat. "Mr. Thompson, this is highly irregular." "I know, Your Honor, but she's my daughter, and she needs me." Judge Washington was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. "We'll take a 15-minute recess. Mr. Thompson, please remain with your daughter. We'll resume when she's ready." The courtroom emptied. But Marcus stayed exactly where he was holding Zoe, rocking her, gently whispering words of comfort and love. "You did so good, baby. I'm so proud of you." "I was so scared, Daddy." "I know, but you were so brave. The bravest girl I've ever known." "Is it over now?" Marcus looked toward the defense table where Victoria was conferring with her lawyer, her face pinched with worry. "Almost, baby, almost." When the court reconvened, Hayes approached for cross-examination. He had been warned by the judge to be gentle. He had seen the jury's reaction to Zoe's testimony. He knew he was walking a razor's edge. "Zoe, you have a very good imagination, don't you?" Patricia objected immediately. "Your Honor, we've been down this road before." "Sustained. Mr. Hayes, I won't warn you again." Hayes changed tactics. "Zoe, is it possible that you misunderstood some things, that maybe what you thought was punishment was actually Victoria trying to teach you manners?" Zoe stared at him with eyes far too old for her face. "She choked me until I almost died. Is that teaching manners?" Hayes had no response. "No further questions." Zoe stepped down from the stand and walked directly to her father. Marcus lifted her into his arms, and she wrapped herself around him like she would never let go. Victoria watched them from the defense table, her expression unreadable, but her hands were trembling. She knew she was losing. The 5th day of the trial brought the prosecution's final witness, Dr. Angela Foster. The child psychologist walked to the stand with quiet confidence, her gray-streaked locks pulled back, her eyes calm and knowing. "Dr. Foster, you have been treating Zoe Thompson for approximately 3 months. Is that correct?" "That's correct." "Can you describe her condition when she first came to you?" Zoe was suffering from severe post-traumatic stress disorder. She exhibited symptoms consistent with prolonged abuse, hypervigilance, nightmares, flashbacks, avoidance behaviors, and what we call learned helplessness. Can you explain learned helplessness? It's when a child or an adult has been hurt so many times that they stop trying to escape or resist. They believe that nothing they do will change their situation. They accept the abuse as inevitable. Dr. Foster's voice was heavy with sorrow. Zoe had reached that point. She had stopped fighting. She had stopped hoping. She had accepted that her life would be one of pain and fear. In your professional opinion, is it possible that Zoe fabricated or exaggerated her experiences? Absolutely not. The trauma I've observed in Zoe is profound and genuine. It is not something a child could fake or imagine. Her symptoms are consistent with months of systematic physical and psychological abuse. And in your opinion, who was responsible for this abuse? Dr. Foster looked directly at Victoria. Victoria Thompson, without question. Hayes rose for his cross-examination, his confidence visibly shaken. Dr. Foster, isn't it true that children can be coached to say things, that their memories can be manipulated by authority figures? That is sometimes true in cases of contentious custody disputes, but this is not a custody case. Zoe's father had no reason to coach her against Victoria. In fact, he was unaware of the abuse until he witnessed it himself. How can you be certain that her memories are accurate? Because I've spent hundreds of hours with this child. I've used every diagnostic tool at my disposal. I've compared her account to the physical evidence, the testimony of other witnesses, and the documentation provided by investigators. Everything aligns. Everything is consistent. Dr. Foster's voice hardened. Zoe Thompson is telling the truth. She has been telling the truth from the beginning, and the fact that Victoria Thompson is sitting in this courtroom pretending to be innocent is an insult to every child who has ever suffered at the hands of an abuser. Objection, the witness is editorializing. I'll allow it. The jury will give the testimony appropriate weight. Hayes sat down defeated. Dr. Foster stepped down from the stand, her head held high. The prosecution rested. Now it was Victoria's turn. She took the stand herself against her lawyer's advice. She was determined to tell her side of the story, determined to convince the jury that she was the real victim. I loved that little girl, Victoria said, her voice trembling with manufactured emotion. I tried so hard to be a good mother to her, but she rejected me from the very beginning. She was jealous. She was manipulative. She saw me as a threat to her relationship with her father. Did you ever physically harm Zoe? Never. I would never hurt a child. The bruises she had, she did that to herself. She would pinch herself, scratch herself, anything to make it look like I was abusing her. Why would a child do that? To get attention, to turn her father against me, to drive me out of the family. Victoria dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. I know how this looks. I know everyone in this room thinks I'm a monster, but I swear to you, on everything I hold sacred, I never hurt that little girl. Patricia Chen stood for cross-examination, her expression cold as ice. Mrs. Thompson, you claim you never hurt Zoe, but we have medical evidence of injuries consistent with choking. How do you explain that? She must have done it to herself. Children can be very resourceful when they want attention. A 6-year-old choked herself hard enough to leave handprint-shaped bruises on her own neck. Victoria's composure flickered. I don't know how she did it, but I know I didn't do it. We also have testimony from James Washington, who witnessed you denying Zoe food. Are you saying he's lying? James has never liked me. He was loyal to Marcus's first wife. He would say anything to protect her memory. What about Michelle Harper, Zoe's teacher? She testified that Zoe was malnourished and hiding food. Is she lying too? She's mistaken. Zoe was a picky eater, that's all. And Elena Vasquez? The woman who testified that you killed her fiancé, is she lying? Victoria's mask cracked completely. That woman is obsessed with me. She's been stalking me for years. She's delusional. I didn't kill Richard. It was an accident. Mrs. Thompson, you just said you didn't kill Richard. How did you know the question was about murder? I simply said his name. Victoria froze. The courtroom was silent. I assumed, because of her testimony, or because you knew exactly what you did to him. Patricia stepped closer. Just like you knew exactly what you were doing to Zoe, just like you know exactly what you planned to do to Marcus. I want to stop. I want my lawyer. You waived your right to counsel when you insisted on testifying against his advice. Patricia's voice was relentless. Let me remind you what we found on your phone, Mrs. Thompson. Text messages with Derek Thompson discussing how to make Marcus have an accident. Is that also a misunderstanding? Those messages were taken out of context. What context makes planning your husband's murder acceptable? I wasn't planning anything. Derek was the one who... Victoria stopped herself. Too late. Derek was the one who... What Mrs. Thompson... Victoria's face went pale. She had trapped herself, betrayed herself with her own words. No further questions. Victoria stumbled off the stand, her carefully constructed facade in ruins. Hayes tried to approach her, but she pushed past him, her eyes wild, her breathing ragged. The jury watched with expressions ranging from disgust to disbelief. Victoria Crawford Thompson had destroyed herself. Closing arguments came the next day. Patricia Chen stood before the jury, her voice steady and strong. Ladies and gentlemen, over the past week, you have heard testimony that should horrify every parent, every person, every human being in this room. You have heard about a woman who systematically tortured a 6-year-old child, who starved her, who beat her, who locked her in a dark closet and let her scream into the void. She paused, letting the words sink in. Victoria Thompson is not a misunderstood stepmother. She is not a victim of a child's manipulation. She is a predator, a killer, a monster who targeted wealthy men, married them, and destroyed them for money. Patricia turned to point at Victoria. She killed Richard Holloway. She planned to kill Marcus Thompson. And she tortured a little girl for 8 months because that little girl stood between her and everything she wanted. The defense will tell you that there's reasonable doubt, that Zoe could have been coached, that the witnesses could be lying. But ask yourself this: what do all these people have to gain by lying? James Washington, a butler who served the family for 22 years, Michelle Harper, a teacher who risked her career to speak up, Elena Vasquez, a woman who spent 5 years seeking justice for her murdered fiancé. The only person who has something to gain by lying is Victoria Thompson, and you saw her on that stand. You saw her composure crumble. You saw her accidentally confess to involvement in a murder plot. I saw the real woman behind the mask. Patricia walked back to the prosecution table and placed her hand on the folder containing all the evidence. Zoe Thompson is 7 years old. She should be worrying about homework and playground friendships and what flavor ice cream to have after dinner. Instead, she wakes up screaming from nightmares. She flinches when people touch her. She still, even now, hides food in her room because she's afraid of being hungry again. That is Victoria Thompson's legacy. That is what she did to an innocent child. I ask you to find her guilty on all counts, not for revenge, not for anger, but for justice, for Zoe, for Richard Holloway, for every victim Victoria Thompson has ever destroyed. Thank you. She sat down. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Marcus waited in the hallway with Zoe, who had fallen asleep against his shoulder. She was exhausted. They both were. The trial had drained them of everything, but they had made it through, together. The courtroom doors opened. The bailiff appeared. We have a verdict. Marcus's heart stopped. This was it. He carried Zoe back into the courtroom. She woke as they sat down, blinking sleepily. Is it over, Daddy? Almost, baby, almost. The jury filed in. 12 faces, carefully neutral, revealing nothing. The judge spoke. Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreman stood. We have, Your Honor. On the charge of attempted murder in the first degree, how do you find Badiou guilty? Marcus exhaled. Zoe grabbed his hand. On the charge of child abuse, how do you find guilty? On the charge of kidnapping, how do you find guilty? On the charge of conspiracy to commit murder, how do you find guilty? Victoria crumpled. Her lawyer tried to steady her, but she pushed him away, collapsing forward onto the defense table, her sobs echoing through the silent courtroom. No, this isn't fair. I didn't do anything. You're all wrong. You're all wrong. The judge banged her gavel. Order Mrs. Thompson, control yourself. But Victoria was beyond control. She was screaming, clawing at the table, her mask completely shattered. Marcus, please, tell them I'm innocent. Tell them I loved you. Tell them I loved Zoe. Marcus looked at the woman who had tortured his daughter, who had planned to kill him, who had destroyed innocent lives without remorse. And he felt nothing. No anger, no hatred, no satisfaction, just emptiness, and relief that it was finally over. The bailiffs dragged Victoria away, still screaming. The courtroom buzzed with shocked murmurs. Zoe tugged at Marcus's sleeve. Daddy, is the bad lady going to jail now? Yes, baby. Marcus pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. The bad lady is going to jail for a very, very long time. Good. Zoe rested her head on his shoulder. Can we go home now? Yeah, baby. Let's go home. They walked out of the courtroom together, past the reporters, past the cameras, past the chaos. Father and daughter, survivors, victorious. The sun was setting over Atlanta, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. A chapter had ended. A new one was about to begin. 3 months after the verdict, Marcus sat in Dr. Foster's office waiting room, watching Zoe through the glass partition. His daughter was drawing. Crayons spread across the small table paper, scattered everywhere, her brow furrowed in concentration. It was such a normal sight, such an ordinary moment, and yet it filled Marcus with something close to wonder. 6 months ago, Zoe couldn't hold a crayon without her hands shaking. 6 months ago, she couldn't be in a room alone without panicking. 6 months ago, she was a broken child shattered by a monster's cruelty. Now she was drawing. She was healing. Dr. Foster emerged from her office, her expression warm but serious. "Mr. Thompson, can I speak with you for a moment?" Marcus followed her inside, taking his usual seat across from her desk. Through the window, he could still see Zoe still drawing, still safe. "How is she doing?" "Better than I expected, honestly." Dr. Foster leaned back in her chair. "Zoe is remarkably resilient. The nightmares have decreased significantly. Her appetite has normalized. She's engaging with other children at school. But," Dr. Foster smiled slightly, "you know me too well. I've learned to hear the things people don't say." "There is a but." Dr. Foster's expression grew more serious. "Zoe has made tremendous progress with the trauma Victoria inflicted. But there's another wound we haven't fully addressed. One that's older and deeper." Marcus felt his chest tighten. "Adrian." "Yes." Zoe lost her mother at a very young age, and before she could properly grieve, before she could process that loss, Victoria came into her life and made everything worse. The grief got buried under all that fear and pain. "What do I need to do?" "You need to help her grieve. Properly. Completely." Dr. Foster leaned forward. "When was the last time you took Zoe to visit Adrienne's grave?" Marcus closed his eyes. The answer shamed him. "I haven't. Not since the funeral." "Why not?" "Because..." His voice cracked. "Because I couldn't face it. Losing her. Standing there and knowing she's gone forever. I thought if I didn't go, if I didn't look at that headstone, I could pretend it wasn't real." "And do you think that helped Zoe?" "No." Marcus opened his eyes, tears threatening to spill. "No, I think I abandoned her in her grief the same way I abandoned her with Victoria. I was so focused on running from my own pain that I didn't see hers." Dr. Foster reached across the desk and squeezed his hand. "Marcus, you're not a perfect father. No one is. But you're a good father. A father who loves his daughter and wants to do better. That's what matters." "How do I fix this?" "Take her to the cemetery. Talk to her about Adrian. Share your memories. Let her ask questions. Let her cry. Let her grieve." Dr. Foster's voice softened. "And let yourself grieve too. You've both been running from this loss for too long. It's time to face it together." That Saturday, Marcus drove Zoe to Oakland Cemetery. The spring air was warm, the sky impossibly blue birds singing in the ancient oak trees that lined the winding paths. It was the kind of day Adrienne would have loved. She always said cemeteries shouldn't be sad places. They should be gardens where we remember the people we've lost. Zoe held her father's hand as they walked her new doll in one arm, her mother's old doll in the other. She had insisted on bringing both. "Daddy, are we going to see Mommy?" "We're going to visit where Mommy is resting, where we put her after she went to heaven." "Will she be able to hear us?" Marcus swallowed hard. "I think so, baby. I think people in heaven can always hear the people who love them." They reached the grave. Adrienne Michelle Thompson, beloved wife and mother, her light shines eternal. Marcus stared at the words carved in stone. The words he had chosen 2 years ago through a fog of grief and disbelief. He remembered standing here on the day of the funeral, Zoe clutching his hand, both of them too shocked to cry. He hadn't been back since. "Hi, Mommy." Zoe's small voice broke the silence. She stepped forward, kneeling in front of the headstone, placing her 2 dolls on the grass. "I brought my dollies to meet you. This one is the one you gave me. I still have her. I kept her safe even when Victoria tried to throw her away, and this one is new. Daddy got her for me. She looks like me, see." Marcus watched his daughter talk to her mother's grave, his heart breaking and healing at the same time. "I miss you, Mommy. I miss you so much. Victoria was really mean to me, but she's in jail now. Daddy saved me. He came back and he saved me just like you always said he would." Zoe's voice wobbled. "I tried to be brave, Mommy. I tried to be strong like you told me, but sometimes I was really scared. Sometimes I wished I could come to heaven and be with you instead of staying here where everything hurt." Marcus dropped to his knees beside his daughter, his own tears falling freely now. "Baby, but I'm glad I stayed." Zoe looked up at him with wet eyes. "Because Daddy needed me, and I needed him, And we're a family even if you're not here. Right, Mommy? We're still a family." She turned back to the headstone, waiting for an answer that wouldn't come. A breeze rustled through the oak trees, gentle and warm, carrying the scent of spring flowers. Zoe smiled. "She said yes, Daddy. She said we're still a family." Marcus gathered his daughter into his arms and held her while they both cried. They cried for Adrian. They cried for the years of pain and loneliness. They cried for the family they had lost and the family they were rebuilding. And when the tears finally stopped, something felt different, lighter, freer, healed. "Can we come back again?" Zoe asked as they walked back to the car. "I want to tell Mommy about school, and my friends, and all the stuff that happens." "We can come back whenever you want, baby, every week if you'd like." "Really? Really, this is where Mommy is, and Mommy should always know what's happening in your life." Zoe squeezed his hand, a smile breaking through her tears. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, baby girl, more than anything in this world." 4 months after the verdict, Marcus received a phone call that changed everything. He was in his home office reviewing the quarterly reports he had finally started paying attention to again when his personal line rang. "Marcus Thompson." "Mr. Thompson, this is Warden Patricia Hayes at the Georgia Women's Correctional Facility. I'm calling about Victoria Thompson." Marcus's blood went cold. "What about her?" "She's requested a meeting with you. She says she has information you need to hear. Information about your daughter." "I have nothing to say to that woman." "I understand, sir, but she was very insistent. She claims there are things you don't know, things that could put your daughter in danger." Marcus's hand tightened on the phone. Victoria was a liar, a manipulator, a monster. Anything she said was designed to hurt, to control, to destroy. But what if she wasn't lying this time? What if there really was something he didn't know? I'll be there tomorrow. The prison was a gray fortress of concrete and razor wire designed to crush hope and contain desperation. Marcus walked through the security checkpoints with grim determination, his stomach churning with memories he had tried to bury. The visiting room was divided by thick plexiglass. Victoria was already waiting on the other side, her orange jumpsuit hanging loose on her thin frame, her blonde hair streaked with gray. She had aged 10 years in 4 months. Marcus sat down and picked up the phone. "You have 5 minutes." Victoria smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Marcus, you look well. How's Zoe?" "Don't say her name." "Still protective." "That's good. She needs someone to protect her." Victoria leaned forward. "Especially now." "What do you mean?" "I mean the people I worked with, the network. You thought Derek and I were acting alone, didn't you? You thought putting us in prison would make your family safe." Marcus felt the first stirring of unease. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying there were others. There are always others. People who invested in our little scheme. People who expected returns on their investment." Victoria's voice dropped. "People who are very, very angry that they didn't get what they were promised." "You're lying." "Am I?" Victoria tilted her head. "Ask yourself this, Marcus. How did I meet the man who specializes in car accidents? How did I get the connections to arrange Zoe's kidnapping so quickly? I'm not a criminal mastermind. I'm just a woman who was willing to do anything for money. But the people behind me, they're something else entirely." "Who are they?" "I don't know all their names. Nobody does. They operate in the shadows. They find people like me, people who are desperate and ruthless, and they use us. And when their investments don't pay off..." Victoria's smile faded. "They collect what they're owed, one way or another." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm going to die in here, Marcus. I know that. 50 years with no parole means I'll never see the outside of these walls again. But Zoe..." Something that might have been genuine emotion flickered in Victoria's eyes. "She's just a child. She didn't do anything wrong. She doesn't deserve to be a target. You tortured her for 8 months. You don't get to pretend you care about her now. I don't care about her." Victoria's voice hardened. "I care about revenge. The people who used me are going to try to hurt you and your daughter because I failed. If you stop them, you hurt them. And hurting them is the only satisfaction I have left." She slid a folded piece of paper under the glass partition. "Names, dates, meeting locations, everything I know about the network. Take it or leave it, but don't say I didn't warn you." Marcus stared at the paper for a long moment. Then he picked it up and put it in his pocket. "We're done here." "Marcus," Victoria's voice stopped him as he stood. "I know you think I'm a monster. Maybe I am. But I want you to know something. I never intended to hurt Zoe. At first, she was just supposed to be a pawn, a bargaining chip, but she was so much like Adrian, so stubborn, so defiant. Every time I looked at her, I saw the woman who had everything I wanted, and I couldn't stand it. That's not an excuse. No, it's not. Victoria's eyes were empty. But it's the truth, and the truth is all I have left. Marcus walked out without looking back, but the paper in his pocket felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. That night, Marcus called Raymond Cole. The private investigator arrived at the Thompson mansion within the hour, his expression grim as Marcus handed him Victoria's note. Jesus Christ, Raymond scanned the names and dates. If this is real, can you verify it? Some of it maybe. A few of these names I recognize. They're connected to organized crime in ways that never quite stick in court. If Victoria was working with them, then Zoe and I are still in danger. Raymond looked up. Possibly. But Marcus, this could also be a manipulation. Victoria knows exactly how to push your buttons. She could be making this up to torment you, to make you paranoid, to destroy your peace of mind from behind bars. Can we afford to assume that Raymond was silent for a long moment? No, we can't. Then find out the truth. Whatever it costs, whatever it takes. I need to know if my daughter is safe. I'll get started tonight. Raymond left, and Marcus sat alone in his study staring at the wall where Adrienne's portrait hung. His late wife's eyes seemed to follow him, warm and knowing, silently asking the question he couldn't answer. Would this nightmare ever truly end? 2 weeks later, Raymond came back with answers. And the answers were worse than Marcus had feared. The network is real, Raymond said, spreading documents across the study desk. They call themselves the Consortium. They operate like venture capitalists, but instead of investing in startups, they invest in schemes. Insurance fraud, inheritance theft, corporate sabotage. They provide funding connections and expertise to people like Victoria in exchange for a percentage of the take. How big are they? Big enough that I couldn't find anyone willing to talk on the record. Big enough that 2 of the informants I approached suddenly left town. Big enough that you need to take this seriously, Marcus. What do they want? Money. What they believe you owe them. Raymond pulled out a sheet with calculations. Based on what Victoria was supposed to deliver, they're expecting roughly $40 million. When she got arrested, that money disappeared, and someone has to pay. So they're going to come after me. Probably not directly. These people don't like exposure. They'll find another way, another angle. Raymond's jaw tightened. Most likely through Zoe. Marcus felt the world tilt beneath him. Not again. Please God, not again. How do I stop them? You expose them. You take everything we found and give it to the FBI. These people survive by staying in the shadows. Drag them into the light and they scatter like cockroaches. Will that keep Zoe safe? It's the best chance you've got. Marcus looked at the pile of documents, the evidence of a criminal network that had been operating for years, destroying lives, ruining families, all in the pursuit of profit. He thought about Zoe sleeping peacefully upstairs, finally free from nightmares, finally starting to heal. He thought about the promise he had made to protect her. Set up a meeting with the FBI, tomorrow. Consider it done. The meeting happened at a secure location downtown. Marcus sat across from Special Agent Denise Walker, a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s who had spent her career taking down organized crime. She listened without interrupting as Marcus laid out everything: Victoria's confession, Raymond's investigation, the documents proving the consortium's existence. When he finished, Agent Walker was silent for a long moment. Mr. Thompson, do you understand what you're asking us to do? I'm asking you to protect my family. You're asking us to dismantle a criminal organization that has evaded law enforcement for over a decade. An organization with connections in law enforcement and government in places you can't even imagine. Can you do it? Agent Walker met his eyes. We can try, but I need you to understand the risks. If we move against the consortium and fail, they will retaliate. They will come after you, your daughter, everyone you love. They're already coming after us. At least this way we fight back. Agent Walker studied him for a long moment. Then she nodded. All right, Mr. Thompson, we're in. The investigation took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of surveillance subpoenas and secret operations. 6 weeks of Marcus jumping at every shadow, hiring extra security, watching Zoe like a hawk. 6 weeks of waiting for the other shoe to drop. And then, on a Tuesday morning in late spring, the shoe dropped. But not the way Marcus expected. He was driving Zoe to school when his phone buzzed with a text from Agent Walker. Turn on the news, it's done. Marcus pulled over and opened the news app on his phone. The headline made his heart stop. FBI dismantles massive criminal network. 47 arrested in nationwide sweep. He scrolled through the article, his hands shaking. Names he recognized from Victoria's list, faces he had memorized from Raymond's files, all of them in handcuffs, all of them finally facing justice. "Daddy, why did we stop?" Marcus looked at his daughter, this brave, resilient, miraculous child who had survived so much. "I just got some good news, baby." "What good news?" "The people who wanted to hurt us. They got caught." Zoe's eyes widened. "All of them. All of them. So we're safe now. Really safe." Marcus reached back and squeezed her hand. "Yeah, baby, we're really safe." Zoe broke into a smile so bright it lit up the entire car. "Can we get ice cream to celebrate?" Marcus laughed, the first genuine laugh he had released in months. "You know what? Yeah, we can." He pulled back onto the road, but instead of heading to school, he drove to Zoe's favorite ice cream shop. It was 9 in the morning, probably too early for sugar, definitely against every parenting rule in the book. But some moments called for ice cream. This was one of them. They sat at a small table by the window, Zoe with her chocolate chip cookie dough, Marcus with his plain vanilla, watching the world go by. "Daddy?" "Yeah, baby? I'm glad you're my daddy." Marcus felt his throat tighten with emotion. "I'm glad you're my daughter." "Even though I cause a lot of trouble..." "You don't cause trouble. Trouble finds you. There's a difference." Zoe giggled, getting ice cream on her nose. Marcus reached over and wiped it off with a napkin, marveling at how such a simple moment could feel so precious. A year ago, he had been a workaholic billionaire who was never home. His wife was dead. His daughter was being abused. His brother and stepmother were plotting his murder. Now he was eating ice cream at 9 in the morning with the most important person in his world. Life had a way of teaching lessons the hard way. But Marcus had finally learned his. 2 weeks later, Victoria Thompson was found dead in her cell. The official cause was suicide. A bedsheet fashioned into a noose. No signs of foul play. But Marcus knew better. The consortium had long arms. Even from behind bars, even with most of its leadership arrested, someone had reached Victoria. Someone had silenced her before she could reveal anything else. Marcus didn't mourn her. He couldn't, but he did feel something when he heard the news. Not grief, not satisfaction, just a strange, hollow finality. The monster was dead. The nightmare was truly over. He didn't tell Zoe right away. He wanted to wait for the right moment, the right words. But she was 7 now, and 7-year-olds heard things. "Daddy?" She approached him in his study that evening, her expression serious. "Is it true that Victoria died?" Marcus set down his pen and opened his arms. Zoe climbed into his lap, curling against him like she had when she was small. "Yes, baby, it's true." "How do you feel?" The question surprised him. Such an adult question from such a small child. "I feel complicated," he admitted. "Victoria did terrible things to you, to us. Part of me is relieved that she's gone. But another part of me is sad. Sad that someone could become so broken, so lost that they would hurt innocent people for money." "Are you sad for her?" "Maybe a little. I'm sad for the person she could have been if things had been different." Zoe was quiet for a moment, thinking. "I'm not sad," she finally said. "I tried to be, because you're supposed to be sad when someone dies. But I just feel empty, like when you finish a book and it's over and you don't know what to do next." "That's okay, baby. You don't have to feel anything you don't feel." "Daddy." Zoe looked up at him with eyes that had seen too much, survived too much. "Is it bad that I'm glad she's gone?" Marcus kissed the top of her head. "No, baby, it's not bad. It's human." They sat together in the quiet study, father and daughter, watching the sun set through the window. The past was finally behind them. The future was waiting. And for the first time in a very long time, Marcus Thompson believed that the future would be bright. 1 month later, on the anniversary of Adrienne's death, Marcus and Zoe visited her grave together. They brought flowers. Pink roses, Adrienne's favorite. They brought pictures. Photos from Zoe's school year, her art projects, her first lost tooth. And they brought something else. A letter. Zoe had spent hours writing it, her tongue poking out in concentration, her handwriting careful and determined. She wouldn't let Marcus read it, insisting it was private, just between her and her mommy. She knelt in front of the headstone and placed the letter beside the flowers. "I wrote you everything, Mommy," she said softly. "About Victoria and the bad things she did, about Daddy saving me, about the trial and the judge, and how I was brave, like you told me to be. I wrote about my new friend Sophie at school, and my teacher Miss Harper, who helped me, and Dr. Foster, who helps me talk about my feelings." She paused, her voice wobbling. "I wrote about how much I miss you, every single day, But I also wrote about how I'm happy now, really happy, because Daddy is here and he's not going away anymore. And we're a family, a small family, but still a family. Zoe traced her fingers over her mother's name, carved in stone. I love you, Mommy. I'll love you forever and ever. And when I get to heaven someday, you better be waiting for me. Okay. She stood up and took her father's hand. Ready to go, baby? Marcus asked. Zoe looked at the grave one more time. The flowers, the letter, the name of the woman who had given her life. Then she nodded. Yeah, Daddy, I'm ready. They walked away together, hand in hand, leaving the past behind and stepping into the future. A future they would build together. A future filled with healing and hope and love. A future Adrian would have been proud of. 1 year after Victoria's death, Marcus stood at the podium of the Atlanta Convention Center, facing 500 guests who had gathered for a night that would change countless lives. His hands were steady, his voice was clear, but his heart was pounding with an emotion he could barely contain. 2 years ago, he began. I was a man who had everything: money, power, success. I had built an empire from nothing, and I thought that empire was my legacy. I thought the buildings with my name on them, the deals I closed, the billions in my accounts. That was what mattered. He paused, letting the words settle over the crowd. I was wrong. The audience was silent, captivated. 2 years ago, while I was chasing contracts and closing deals, my daughter was being tortured in our own home. She was starved, beaten, locked in a dark closet, told that her father didn't love her, that no one would ever save her. Marcus's voice cracked. And I had no idea. I was so busy building my empire that I didn't see my own child crumbling. He looked toward the front row where Zoe sat between James and Dr. Foster, her eyes fixed on him with fierce pride. My daughter saved herself. She survived 8 months of hell because she refused to give up hope. She believed, even when everything told her otherwise, that someone would come for her, that she mattered, that she was worth saving. Marcus stepped out from behind the podium, moving closer to the audience. Tonight, we launched the Adrienne Thompson Foundation, named for my late wife who taught me what love really means. This foundation will provide resources, support, and protection for children who are suffering in silence just like my daughter was. We will fund therapy programs. We will train teachers and social therapists and social workers to recognize the signs of abuse. We will create safe spaces where children can speak their truth without fear. He turned to look at Zoe again. But most importantly, we will tell these children what my daughter needed to hear. What every abused child needs to hear. His voice rose powerful and unwavering. You are not alone. You are not worthless. You are not a burden. You are worthy of love, of protection, of a future filled with hope. And someone is coming for you. Someone will save you. Hold on. The audience erupted in applause. Zoe was crying. But she was also smiling, her face glowing with emotion. She jumped from her seat and ran toward the stage, and Marcus dropped to one knee just in time to catch her. I'm so proud of you, Daddy, she whispered against his shoulder. I'm proud of you, baby girl. This is all because of you. They stood together on that stage, father and daughter survivors, as 500 people rose to their feet in a standing ovation that seemed to go on forever. The foundation had begun, and the real work was just starting. 6 months later, the Adrienne Thompson Foundation had already helped over 300 children. Marcus had stepped back from the day-to-day operations of his tech company, appointing trusted executives to run things while he focused on what truly mattered. He was still wealthy, still powerful, but those things no longer defined him. What defined him now was the little girl who woke him up every morning with a hug. Daddy, Daddy, wake up. Today's the day, Marcus groaned, pulling the pillow over his head. 5 more minutes. No, you promised? We have to go see Sophie's new puppy before school. He peeked out from under the pillow. Zoe was standing beside his bed, already dressed, her hair in 2 neat braids that James had learned to do after watching approximately 40 YouTube tutorials. You're already ready. I've been ready for an hour. Mr. James made pancakes. There's chocolate chips. Marcus couldn't help but laugh. This was his life now. Chocolate chip pancakes and puppies and a daughter who couldn't wait to start each day. He would never take it for granted. Okay, I'm up. They drove to Sophie's house, Zoe bouncing in the back seat with excitement. Sophie Chen was her best friend, the daughter of Patricia Chen, the prosecutor who had put Victoria away. The 2 girls had met at a foundation event and had been inseparable ever since. Do you think the puppy will like me? Zoe asked anxiously. Baby, everyone likes you. Not everyone. Marcus glanced in the rearview mirror. Zoe's expression had shifted, a shadow of old memories crossing her face. Victoria didn't like me. Victoria was broken inside, baby. The way she treated you had nothing to do with you and everything to do with her own darkness. Dr. Foster says I shouldn't blame myself. Dr. Foster is very smart. She also says I should talk about my feelings instead of keeping them inside. Also very smart. Zoe was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Sometimes I still have bad dreams. Not as much as before. But sometimes." Marcus pulled the car over and turned to face his daughter. "What happens in the dreams?" "She's there, Victoria. She's trying to take me away again, and I'm screaming for you, but you can't hear me." Zoe's lower lip trembled. "And then I wake up and I'm scared you won't be there." Marcus reached back and took her hand. "I will always be there. Always. Even when you're a grown-up with your own house and your own family, I will be there. All you have to do is call my name and I will come running. Promise. Promise. On your mother's grave. On everything I am." Zoe squeezed his hand tight. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, baby. Now come on. Let's go meet this puppy." The shadow passed. The smile returned. And Marcus reminded himself, as he did every day, that healing wasn't a destination. It was a journey. And they were walking it together. Sophie's puppy was a golden retriever named Sunshine, and within 5 minutes, Zoe was completely in love. "Daddy, can we get a puppy, please, 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 please?" Marcus looked at Patricia Chen, who was watching the scene with amusement. "Don't look at me," Patricia said. "You're the one who brought her here." "I'm being ambushed." "Welcome to parenthood." They sat on Patricia's porch while the girls played with Sunshine in the yard, their laughter ringing through the morning air. "How is she doing?" Patricia asked. "Really?" Marcus watched Zoe chase the puppy across the grass, her braids flying behind her. "Better every day. The nightmares are less frequent. The flinching is almost gone. She's making friends, doing well in school, starting to act like a normal kid." He paused. "But there are still moments. Triggers we don't expect. Sounds or smells that take her back to that place. That's normal for trauma survivors. It doesn't mean she's not healing. It means she's human." "I know. Dr. Foster says the same thing." Marcus turned to look at Patricia. "Thank you for everything you did, for believing Zoe, for fighting for her." "I was just doing my job." "No, you went above and beyond. You made sure Victoria would never hurt anyone again. You gave my daughter justice." Patricia was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I've been a prosecutor for 20 years. I've put away murderers, rapists, drug dealers, but Victoria's case, it hit different. Seeing that little girl on the stand telling the truth, even though she was terrified, that was the bravest thing I've ever witnessed." "She's the bravest person I know." "She gets it from you." Marcus shook his head. "No, she gets it from her mother. Adrian was the brave one. I was just the guy who showed up too late." "You showed up," Patricia said firmly. "That's what matters. A lot of fathers wouldn't have. A lot of fathers would have believed the pretty wife over the traumatized child. You didn't. I almost did. For 8 months I almost did. But when it mattered, you saw the truth. You fought for her. You saved her." Patricia put her hand on his arm. "Stop punishing yourself for the past, Marcus. Start celebrating the future you're building." Before Marcus could respond, a small body slammed into him. "Daddy, Sophie's mom said we could have a play date on Saturday. Can we please?" Marcus looked at Patricia, who shrugged with a smile. "Fine with me if it's fine with you." "Please, Daddy, please, please, please." Marcus pretended to think about it just to watch Zoe squirm with anticipation. "I suppose we could make that work." "Yay!" Zoe hugged him tight, then ran back to Sophie and the puppy, the two girls shrieking with delight. Patricia laughed. "You're completely wrapped around her finger." "Completely," Marcus agreed. "And I wouldn't have it any other way." 3 months later, something unexpected happened. Marcus was at a foundation fundraiser shaking hands and making small talk with donors when a woman approached him that made his heart skip a beat. She was beautiful. Dark skin, natural hair. Warm eyes that seemed to see right through him. She wore a simple black dress and carried herself with quiet confidence. "Mr. Thompson, I'm Dr. Rachel Williams. I run a pediatric trauma center in Chicago. I've been following your foundation's work." "Dr. Williams." Marcus shook her hand, hoping she couldn't feel how sweaty his palm had become. "Thank you for coming. What brings you to Atlanta?" "I'm considering relocating, opening a satellite center here, and I wanted to meet the man behind the Adrian Thompson Foundation." She smiled, and Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in years. "Your daughter's story moved me deeply. I'd love to discuss potential collaboration." "I'd like that." They talked for an hour. Then, too, the fundraiser ended and they were still talking, having moved to a quiet corner where they could hear each other over the crowd. Rachel told him about her work with traumatized children. Marcus told her about Zoe, about the journey they had been on. They discovered shared interests, shared values, shared dreams of making the world safer for the most vulnerable. By the end of the night, Marcus had her number in his phone, and a feeling in his chest he had almost forgotten existed. Hope. For something he hadn't dared to imagine. But before he could pursue it, he needed to talk to the most important person in his life. "Daddy, are you going to marry Dr. Rachel?" Marcus nearly choked on his coffee. It had been 2 weeks since the fundraiser. He and Rachel had been talking every day, long phone calls that stretched into the night, but he hadn't even taken her on a proper date yet. "What? Where did you hear that? Mr. James says you're smitten. What does smitten mean?" Marcus made a mental note to have a word with James about discussing his love life with an 8-year-old. "It means I like her, as a friend." Zoe gave him a look that was far too knowing for her age. "You talk to her every night? You smile when her name comes up. You're wearing your nice shirt today, even though we're just going to the park." She crossed her arms. "That's not how you act with friends, Daddy." Marcus set down his coffee cup. "You're right. Dr. Rachel is more than a friend. Or at least I think she could be. But Zoe, nothing is going to happen unless you're okay with it." "Why wouldn't I be okay?" "Because after Victoria, I would understand if you didn't want another woman in our family. If you wanted it to just be you and me." Zoe was quiet for a long moment. Marcus could see her processing, thinking through feelings that most adults would struggle to articulate. "Victoria was bad," she finally said, "but that doesn't mean everyone is bad. Dr. Rachel helps kids like me. She's nice. She laughs at your jokes even though they're not that funny." "Hey," Zoe giggled, but then her expression grew serious. "Daddy, I want you to be happy, and I can tell Dr. Rachel makes you happy. Just..." She hesitated. "Just don't forget about me, okay? Don't let her be more important than me." Marcus pulled his daughter into his arm, holding her tight against his chest. "Listen to me, Zoe Thompson. No one in this world will ever be more important to me than you. No one. You are my heart. You are my reason for everything. That will never change. Not if I date Dr. Rachel. Not if I marry her. Not if we have 100 more children. You are my first, my always, my forever." Zoe buried her face in his shoulder. "I love you, Daddy. I love you too, baby girl, more than anything." When Zoe finally pulled back, she was smiling. "Okay, you can date Dr. Rachel, but I want to approve of her first, like in the movies where the kid interviews the new girlfriend." Marcus laughed. "You want to interview her?" "Yes, I have questions, important questions." "Like what?" "Like, does she know how to make pancakes? Mr. James can't always be here. Someone needs to know pancakes." "I'll make sure to ask." "And does she like dogs? Because I'm still working on the puppy situation." "Noted." Zoe nodded, satisfied that she had established the ground rules. "Okay, Daddy, you have my permission. Don't mess it up." Marcus saluted. "Yes, ma'am." The first official date was a disaster, not because of Rachel. Rachel was perfect, but Zoe, despite claiming to approve, had insisted on coming along, and halfway through dinner she had spilled an entire glass of water on Rachel's lap. "I'm so sorry." Zoe was near tears. "I didn't mean to. My hand just knocked it and I couldn't stop it, and now your dress is ruined and you're going to hate me and..." "Hey, hey, hey." Rachel knelt down to Zoe's level, her wet dress completely forgotten. "It's okay. It's just water. It'll dry, and I could never hate you. Spills happen to everyone." "Really? Really? One time I spilled an entire pot of spaghetti sauce on my boss at a work dinner. Compared to that, this is nothing." Zoe's eyes went wide. "Did you get fired?" "No, he laughed about it." "And now it's our favorite story to tell at parties." Rachel smiled warmly. "So don't worry, okay? This is just going to be a funny story we tell someday." Zoe stared at Rachel for a long moment. Then she did something that took Marcus completely by surprise. She hugged her. It was quick, almost impulsive, but it was a hug. From a child who had learned to fear touch. From a girl who had spent months flinching away from affection. When Zoe pulled back, Rachel's eyes were glistening. "Thank you," Rachel whispered. "For what?" Zoe asked. "For giving me a chance." From across the table, Marcus watched the moment unfold, his heart fuller than it had been in years. Maybe this could work. Maybe they could be a family again. 6 months later, Marcus proposed. Not in a fancy restaurant or a grand gesture, but in the place that mattered most, Adrienne's grave. He brought Rachel there on a spring morning, flowers in hand, Zoe by his side. Rachel had been there before, had paid her respects to the woman who had come before her, but this time was different. "Adrian," Marcus said, kneeling before the headstone, "I need to ask you something. I'm in love again. I didn't think I could be after losing you, but Rachel, she's special. She loves Zoe. She loves me. She makes us laugh. She makes us whole in ways I didn't know we were broken." He took a deep breath. "I'm asking your blessing. I know you can't answer. I know you're in heaven watching over us. But I need you to know that I will never forget you. That you will always be Zoe's mother. That the love we shared will live in my heart forever." He paused, tears streaming down his face. "But I think you would want me to be happy. I think you would want Zoe to have a complete family, and I think you would love Rachel if you could meet her." A breeze rustled through the trees, warm and gentle. Zoe whispered, "She said yes, Daddy. I can feel it." Marcus smiled through his tears and stood. He turned to Rachel, who was crying silently, her hand over her heart. He dropped to one knee. "Rachel Williams, you came into our lives when we were broken and helped make us whole. You love my daughter like she's your own. You make me believe in second chances and new beginnings. Will you marry us?" Rachel laughed through her tears. "Don't you mean marry you? No, I mean us, Zoe and me. We're a package deal." "Best kind of deal there is." She pulled him to his feet and kissed him deep and long, while Zoe made exaggerated gagging noises. "So is that a yes?" Marcus asked when they finally broke apart. "That's a yes, 1,000,000 times yes." Zoe cheered and threw herself at both of them, and they stood there in the cemetery, 3 people becoming a family surrounded by flowers and sunshine and the eternal blessing of a woman who had loved them first. The wedding was held 1 year to the day after the foundation launched. 500 guests. The same convention center, but this time instead of a podium and a speech, there was an altar and a promise. Zoe walked down the aisle first, throwing flower petals with enthusiastic abandon, her smile brighter than the June sunshine streaming through the windows. Then came Rachel, radiant in white tears already streaming down her face. And at the altar stood Marcus, the man who had lost everything and found it again. "We are gathered here today," the officiant began, "to witness the union of Marcus and Rachel and the creation of a new family." The ceremony was beautiful, the vows were heartfelt, but the moment that would stay with everyone present came at the end. The officiant turned to Zoe, who was standing between her father and soon-to-be stepmother. "Zoe, you are an essential part of this family. Do you promise to love Rachel, to accept her as part of your life, and to be the best daughter you can be?" Zoe looked at Rachel with serious eyes. "I promise, but only if you promise something too." Rachel knelt down to Zoe's level. "What do I need to promise?" "Promise you'll never hurt me. Promise you'll never leave. Promise you'll love me even when I'm annoying or messy or scared of the dark." Rachel took Zoe's hands in hers. "I promise, Zoe Thompson. I promise to love you, protect you, and be there for you for as long as I live. You are my daughter now, and nothing in this world will ever change that." Zoe threw her arms around Rachel's neck. "Then I accept you as my new mommy." The church erupted in tears and applause. Marcus watched his daughter embrace the woman who would help raise her, his heart so full it felt like it might burst. This was his family. Broken and healed. Shattered and rebuilt. Stronger than before. And nothing, no monster, no conspiracy, no darkness would ever tear them apart again. 5 years later, Zoe Thompson stood at her own podium. She was 13 now, tall for her age, with her mother Adrienne's eyes and her father's stubborn chin. She wore a blue dress, her locks falling over her shoulders, and in her hands she held the speech she had written herself. The Adrienne Thompson Foundation had grown beyond anyone's expectations. It operated in 40 states, had helped over 50,000 children, and had become a national model for abuse prevention and intervention. And today, at their 5th annual gala, they were honoring someone special. "When I was 6 years old," Zoe began, her voice steady and clear, "I thought I was going to die. I thought no one would ever save me. I thought I was worthless, stupid, ugly, a burden that no one wanted." The audience was silent, captivated by the young woman who had survived what no child should ever endure. "My stepmother told me those things every day for 8 months. She hurt me. She starved me. She locked me in the dark. And I believed her. I believed I was nothing." Zoe looked down at the front row where her father sat with Rachel and their 2-year-old son, Marcus Jr. But she was wrong. She was wrong about all of it. Because my father came for me. He saw the truth when everyone else saw lies. He fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. He saved my life. Her voice cracked, but she pushed through. "Tonight we honor the man who founded this organization, the man who turned our family's darkest moment into a mission to help others. The man who taught me that the past doesn't define us, that our wounds can become our wisdom, and that love, real love, never gives up. Zoe raised her glass. To my father, Marcus Thompson, my hero, my protector, my best friend. Everything I am, everything I will become is because you believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. She paused, tears streaming down her face. I love you, Daddy. Thank you for saving me. Marcus rose from his seat, tears flowing freely, and walked to the stage. He wrapped his daughter in his arms, holding her tight, feeling the strong, confident young woman she had become. I love you too, baby girl, he whispered. But you've got it wrong. You saved me. They stood there, father and daughter survivors, as 500 people rose in a standing ovation that shook the walls. And in the audience, Rachel held little Marcus on her hip and wiped tears from her eyes, her heart overflowing with pride for the family she had been blessed to join. Later that night, after the gala had ended and the guests had gone home, the Thompson family gathered in the living room of the house that had once held so much darkness. Marcus sat on the couch with Rachel tucked under one arm and Zoe under the other. Little Marcus was asleep in his father's lap, his tiny fist curled around a stuffed puppy that Sunshine, now an old dog with a gray muzzle, had generously shared. Daddy, Zoe asked quietly. Yeah, baby? Do you ever think about Victoria anymore? Marcus was quiet for a moment. It had been years since he had spoken her name out loud. Sometimes, he admitted. Not often, but sometimes. Me too. Zoe nestled closer to him. But it doesn't hurt like it used to. Now it's just a memory, like a scar that healed. That's exactly what it is. Dr. Foster says scars are proof that we survived. Dr. Foster is wise. She also says that our pain can help others heal. That's why I keep speaking at foundation events. Because if my story helps one kid feel less alone, then everything I went through was worth it. Marcus kissed the top of her head. When did you get so smart? I learned from the best. Rachel laughed softly. She definitely didn't learn that modesty from you, Marcus. Hey. The family dissolved into laughter, waking little Marcus, who blinked sleepily and said, Doggy. Time for bed, Rachel announced, scooping up her son. Say goodnight to Daddy and Sissy. Night-night, Daddy, night-night, Sissy. Good night, little man. Rachel carried him upstairs, leaving Marcus and Zoe alone. Daddy, yeah? I'm happy, really truly happy. I didn't think I would ever feel this way, after everything that happened. But I do. Marcus pulled her into one final hug. That's all I ever wanted for you, baby girl. Happiness, peace, a life filled with love. I have that now, because of you. Because of us. We did this together. Zoe smiled the same gap-toothed smile she had given him years ago, before Victoria, before the darkness, before the pain. But now it was stronger, brighter, the smile of someone who had walked through fire and emerged on the other side, not unscathed, but unbroken. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Zoe. She headed upstairs, Stores her Sunshine following at her heels. Marcus sat alone in the quiet living room, looking at the photos on the wall. Adrian on their wedding day. Zoe as a baby. The family portrait they had taken last year, all four of them, plus Sunshine, grinning at the camera. He had lost so much, but he had gained even more. And as he climbed the stairs to join his wife and children, Marcus Thompson knew one thing with absolute certainty. The darkness was behind them. The light had won. And their story, a story of survival and healing, and love that refused to die, would be told for generations to come. My dear friends, the story has come to an end, but its echoes will surely remain with each of us. A little black girl, once crying out in despair, finally found her way back into the warm embrace of her father. A father once consumed by work came to realize that the most precious thing in life was not contracts or numbers, but the smile and happiness of his own daughter. The wicked paid the price. Schemes, lies, and cruelty were exposed. Victoria and Derek received the punishment they deserved. That is justice, a reminder for all of us that no one can forever hide evil behind a glamorous mask. On the other hand, the good, even after enduring suffering, were rewarded with truth and love. Most importantly, this story showed us that a small heart once thought to be crushed in darkness can still find light when someone is willing to reach out and protect it. Zoe was no longer the terrified child crying out in fear, but became a symbol of strength and hope for countless other children. How do you feel after hearing this story? Have we at times unknowingly let our loved ones endure loneliness and pain without realizing it? Please share your thoughts in the comments. I also want to ask, where are you listening to this story from? At home, on your way to work, during a quiet evening? I truly want to know, because your presence is the motivation that keeps us bringing you more heartwarming, touching stories like this one. Thank you for being with us. Always remember, in this world, justice does exist, and sometimes just one embrace, one sincere word of love, is enough to bring light back into an entire life. The end.